All right, chat. Testing 1, 2, 3. We are live again. Of course, we would have technical difficulties on the night we'd have to catch a flight. Hey, yo, it is what it is. We're gonna have to power through. It might be an all-nighter. Yikes! Is sleeping on the airplane gonna be a clutch thing? I mean, it's not a long. You know, it's the West Coast. It's not a long flight. We're talking an album. We'll listen to an album on each flight. We'll be fine. But you know, either way, we're of course excited to get out to the West Coast for. The big wedding. What Travis and Taylor's wedding is this soon? No, of course, Sam and Nia's wedding is the one that we're talking about. We can't wait. But we're drafting we're just quick pivot into the draft, chat. We've got to be timely. We'll catch it quickly up on where we are for those of you joining us. Reed joining us. We're taking one player from each team to assemble the perfect lineup for going into the 2025 season. So we've only got a limited number of course, starting spots. We've got 22 spots overall, of course, to choose from. So that means there is going to be 10 teams that don't have a representative in the perfect lineup. Unfortunately, to those 10 teams, I guess they're just going to have to do a better job of acquiring a more fun blue chip talent. It is what it is. And again, only one guy from each team. So I know that we have 10 wild card teams that are going to get left off to play. There is some room to play with. It's not necessarily going to be the most difficult to mess up at that point. But is Coco Gauff on the advantage of winning here? We should also on the edge. Pause on the edge. What are we talking about, Chad? On the advantage of winning? I think the U.S. Open is in the first round. Of course, we've got Coco Gauff on in the background. The 3 seed matched up versus Tom Janovic from Australia, prime time at the U.S. Open. It's been a fun matchup, but it's hopefully looking like Coco Gauff is going to take this one. But again, we got to be a little bit smart with some of the guys that we have selected. So, of course, as we've been going through it already, like the Chiefs are a good example. Of course, the obvious one, if we were just ranking, I mean, you know, if we're ranking guys, I guess maybe it's not so obvious if we want to get hot takey. But of course, you can just do the easy thing and take Mahomes as your quarterback, and you're not. It's not a bad move. Again, our lineup's going to be a good lineup if we're just taking the best guys off every team. But if we really want to maximize this roster, you know, they do have a couple other options. We could have gone Chris Jones for the defensive line. We could have gone Trent McDuffie for the secondary. Is another really interesting one as well too. I think he might have honestly been the second pick if we didn't go center. But Humphrey is arguably the best center in the league. Ragnow is hurt as well, too, from the Lions. So he's another one. Yes, chat, you can see here we do have offensive line spots on our perfect lineup. Oh, wait a second, chat. Wait a second. We've got 3 offensive tackles here in the lineup. Uh-oh, we have a penalty before we've even got started. Our lineup hasn't been assembled. Does that mean they're not huddled yet? Hey, yo, chat. 1st and 15 for the perfect lineup is crazy right off the bat. Okay, we got it corrected now. Perfect lineup is set. Only 2 tackles. I guess, yeah, we're running 3 receivers, so it's not, you know, a weird... you know, if we had just 2 receivers, the tight end, we could run the tackle at that tight end spot, and then just we're running a jumbo set offensive line. Perfect lineup is the tush push, I guess, for 2026. But... we'll get it straightened out. We're running 3 receivers, I guess, not 2 tight ends. A little bit of like a basic defensive lineup, of course. But, you know, it is what it is. We're just picking fun guys. So, you know, it'll be good. If we need to move these guys around the defense, hopefully we'll be fine. If we need to kick Myles Garrett and he lines up between the guard and tackle instead of just over the tackle, you know, he might be okay. But, yeah, we did end up going with Creed Humphrey for the Chiefs. We got to solidify the offensive line first, I guess. So we've got him locked in at the center position. Of course, the Colts gets a little bit easier. The options are narrowed down. I mean, we didn't even mention Kenny Moore on the previous live stream. That's probably why IT cut it off, so we could restart it and mention that. You know, Kenny Moore is a sleeper option, secondary option as well, too. If we were run like a, you know, some sort of secondary, you know, some sort of alternate package, you know, that could be definitely a fun guy to have out there. DeForest Buckner was another one, again, from the defensive team. There's going to be a lot of defensive line guys that you can mention, and like we said before, it is, of course, one of the more valuable roster spots on the league. So it's a really talented spot in the league as well, too, just the defensive line in general. But it's the value there, you kind of want to pick some of those guys. So, you really want to pick Buckner if you're building a team as a building block starting point. But there may be, again, a couple other interior edge guys. So I doubt we're going to have to go back and replace Quentin Nelson from our guard spot. But if we do have to, for some reason, I guess, put DeForest Buckner in or, leave the Colts off, that would be crazy. But, I guess the problem is there's no other guards in the league better than Quentin Nelson. So I guess if we go through the list, we're kind of already out of options at this point. So, and, Myles Garrett, again, is sort of the obvious example of this just whole thing in general where is just like the only good guy on the team. Ayo, shout out. Again, there's other, Judy as the number one receiver has been really productive. Shout out a guy, Mason Graham. Their first round pick is hopefully going to help, build on a strength, and their defense in general has been really good linebackers and stuff. So, really talented guys all the way around. But in terms of the absolute elite best at their spot contenders, of course, Myles Garrett's the only one. They have arguably the best in the league as well, too. And like we were mentioning on the last, live stream before we got cut off, I'm almost hoping that just social media requests a trade for him at this point, and that we can just, as a sports fandom, push for him to request a trade, and then, like I was saying, the player empowerment movement just goes full circle at that point. And now all of a sudden, the fans are requesting trades for the players. Would be crazy way to bring it all the way around. But I would like to see him have some action, be on some successful teams, I guess is a better way to say it. It would be fun if he's on some successful teams in his 30s. I'm not saying that, time's running out, we need to get Myles Garrett on a team. That could be part of it. But, even if he is having a second run in his 30s, Julius Peppers is another guy we should have brought up that had the long run. We were talking about Bruce Smith, who, of course, is the all-time sack leader. I don't know if Garrett is necessarily going to be in, that list. We'd have to necessarily see what kind of pace he's on at this point, and some of the health stuff as well too. Let's see how far away is he. Where are we at? Dallas. Oh, we might have been a ways away from Myles Garrett. And again, Bruce Smith played till he's 40, so I don't know how many, sacks per year that Myles Garrett would need. But yeah, somebody like the Colts, I guess, trade for Myles Garrett. And the landing spot is tricky because, again, he's a cheat code. So you don't want him to go to the Eagles. You don't want him to go to the Chiefs. The Ravens are off the list. I think, unfortunately, again, the Bills have been in conference championships and they've been competitive. The Bills would be the one team in the mix that could use him. Actually, the Ravens could probably use him as well, too, to have just like that lockdown defensive lineman type guy. Because the Chiefs, he'd be an upgrade at the edge, but Chris Jones is arguably as good of a defensive lineman in general as Garrett. So they have a stud at that spot on the roster. Again, Karlaftis is obviously really good as well too. But the Colts seem like a perfect spot. The Giants have too many defensive linemen, so he could go to I guess the Giants are just not that great of a team as well too. Maybe Jackson Dart. If Jackson Dart is really fun, and then Malik Neighbors, of course, it seems like they're going to be turned around. The problem is that division is really crazy. The Cowboys, if he goes to the Cowboys, him and Parsons, that team's not so overly stacked that it would be like, them getting another star. I don't know what that... Are the Cowboys the Clippers? I don't know if they're quite that far where Myles Garrett's career is over, but that would be a little bit of a... Jerry Jones ends up with Myles Garrett. Like, how did that happen? Unless it is a trade for Parsons. But then again, Parsons on the Browns. So that's no fun. We're trying to get elite players away from Cleveland. Hey, I'm sorry to Cleveland, but you build through the draft. We're just talking about signing and trading elite players. That's all. Veteran players, again, we're all in on elite drafted talent going to Cleveland for sure. Prove yourself a formidable team. But free agents at this point is a little bit of a talk me into a destination. But what we're saying, Garrett is a lock for the lineup just in general, even if the Browns were definitely a team that if Myles Garrett had to suffer for the rest of Cleveland and we left Cleveland off the list just to put a more fun team in at the defensive line spot, because again, it would still be really stacked. That would be, I think, almost understandable. But yeah, Myles Garrett's just too good to be left off. So maybe Atlanta. I wouldn't necessarily mind him going to Atlanta. There's not a lot of animosity between the Colts and there's really no history between the Colts and the Falcons. So, unless there's like a random Super Bowl that is going to happen in the future the Falcon, I feel like everybody kind of, the 23 thing is, them losing to Brady as well too. Maybe if they had lost to a more likable team, it is a pretty jokeable moment. But again, it's still kind of just, maybe we wouldn't feel as bad for them, but because the team that won against them, it's just, that Patriots team is a little bit more likable than some of the, I guess that was Deflategate, but the Spygate and some of the early teams, it just seemed like they had a hard time, of course, getting traction in the media. And they did, the Falcons, anyways, back to 2025, the Falcons did invest in their defensive line in the draft. So Jalen Walker, shout out. Again, we wouldn't want to see him traded for Myles Garrett. Maybe some picks in Leonard Floyd at that time. So Coco Gauff is up 5-3. Is that sets, rounds, games? I never remember the tennis terminology, but you know how the scoring works, the 40s, the 30s, the single digits. So 5-3 on the games. Yeah, because it's a set game match, right? Game set match. For some reason, game set match sounds right when you say it the 3 in a row, but it does make more sense that a set would be, well, I guess I don't know. It could really go either way. But Myles Garrett going to the Falcons would definitely give their defense a boost. And their secondary has had some, with Bates and Terrell, could definitely, if the pressure was getting there, you could really see them elevated to a different role. And then their offense is on the potential of doing something crazy. The Packers would be an interesting team. Again, they have Rashawn Gary, so maybe you'd just be looking for him to get unlocked. The Chargers would be interesting. Him to the Chargers. The Vikings would be a fun team if, again, they didn't have such a great defensive line already. So it would supercharge that team for sure. And I guess obviously McCarthy's good. So yeah, the Vikings are going to be fun for sure. The Saints, now that Spencer Rattler has been named the starter, and now that there's certainty, we know what's going to happen. Bring in Myles Garrett and start building around Spencer Rattler. Might honestly be the plan. But yeah, like Steelers, even the Steelers, their defense is too crazy. The Jets are no fun if he goes there. And Washington is a little old, but yeah, he might fit into Washington. Hey, yo. Is Dorrance Armstrong in the trade? Did they just know that he was there? I think he might have been there last year as well, too. Sandstrom is really proved himself last year as a corner. Who knows if he's an elite number 1 guy going forward. But Sandstrom, some of the, Wagner Martin is kind of a nice safety potential guy. So that would be a fun team. Just him and Jant Daniels as a duo would, of course, be as good of building blocks that you could get at some of your most important spots on the team, for sure. But I do kind of think the Falcons, and again, we did say that the Falcons might be our mistress team of the year. Maybe we do a mistress team's power ranking. I don't know. But the random team whoever got Myles Garrett would be way up there as well. Cincinnati wouldn't want to pay him, so they would never trade for him. And then New England still just has the vibe of, I know that, again, Belichick's not there. Even when if Belichick goes back, like Belichick is even just in a different spot than he was, again, 5-10 years ago. Just the whole perception, and if trades and team building stuff, like, I almost think Belichick might reform the Patriots vibe of what I'm thinking about with that old Belichick way. Like, Belichick might be the only thing to cleanse the Patriots of Belichick. Hey, yo. But he's kind of, again, like this guy's like the weird, you don't want to say weird, but like what's going on with Bill Belichick? He's got, just the checklist of things that Bill Belichick has got going on right now is just a really fun personality in a non-Belichickian personality. It's like the total opposite. It really is. So it's like if this guy was existing next to Belichick, And it was, the Patriots needed to get another coach back in the day. You're like, we need to completely pivot away from the vibe Belichick. Let's get a guy. And I guess Belichick has not necessarily been like, buddy with the media, like making friends with anybody, but at least he is in the media. And, I think if you kind of combine the pre versus the post of not necessarily the retirement, pre-post football, but if we timeline a certain event in the retirement, the way he was perceived in the media then, kind of combined with the corniness of what's happening, whatever the checklist of what's happening now is, again, those two things would have been just the complete opposite of whatever old Belichick was back in the day. So you're like, let's just rebrand the Patriots team around this new head coach that we have in 2025. But again, I don't know if Vrabel still has the Belichick sort of vibe of, when the Patriots get a guy, it's a little bit of that, oh, of course, kind of mentality. But again, it's still a lot, still several years removed from that actually happening and from that being an actual impact in the league. But if Garrett did go to the Patriots, it would be a little bit of, oh yeah, of course. And maybe it's them having Drake May as well too, where again, it's a little bit of, oh yeah, of course, where they've replenished the coach and the quarterback. Oh, Belichick and Brady are back in a micro version of it with May and Vrabel, and then adding in Garrett's like Richard Seymour again. I don't know, but that would be a team, of course, that wouldn't be too overly stacked. The Raiders would be fun as well too. Again, that would be him and Crosby. Like, that would be nuts. Oh, I mean, Malcolm Kuntz, shout out. I mean, he's really great. So I don't know if you'd want to, and the value as well too. The contract, I don't know if you want to start trading him as well. And it's not the NBA, so it's not like you need to get a defensive lineman back in the trade. But Garrett on the Raiders with Crosby, Geno, Bowers, just the random G&T, just like some of the offensive line, the random eliteness that they have would be a fun mix. So do we have to just go with the Raiders next for our perfect lineup? Again, it's not Myles Garrett trade corner. This is our perfect lineup for 2025, because I think that Bowers would be, of course, the strongest consideration for tight end for this spot. San Francisco would be the other one as well too. I mean, if we wanted to get projectable with the Niners, we could take G&T as our running back, because we were, of course, saying that he might be probably our number one target for fantasy as well too. I think, we could go with a couple of those other top guys for sure. But again, we're leaving Crosby on the board at the most stacked position in the league, defensive line. Bowers at probably the least stacked, but again, the tight end works out for the rosters. The other rosters are good. So we did take, I guess, two of our options off the board with Kelsey and Tyler Warren, I guess, with the Colts. But Bowers is still definitely a strong contender. And I guess, we could go offensive line, Colton Miller, potentially. DJ Glaze, just for the name of it, we just have to have a great name on our team, and everybody, the rest of our offensive line will be okay. DJ Glaze at right tackle will look good with Quentin Nelson and whoever else the rest of this stacked offensive line is. Yeah, DJ Glaze will look good as a pause. A-L-I-T. Edit that out. But, Brock Bowers is definitely in consideration. Again, Kittle is, I think, the number one, just the PFF. We're looking at the blocking and the full sort of what you get from the tight end spot. So we wouldn't necessarily need him as much as a receiver, because, again, we're going to have elite receivers on this team. So if we're actually being realistic here, like, Bowers would be receiver heavy. Again, the line's going to be good, so we wouldn't necessarily need the tight end to block in that type of way. But just in certain run schemes, you're going to have the tight end, blocking in certain ways if he's capable of it. So Kittle would actually be able to accomplish that and bring the receiving threat as well too, because McBride would be another option. Arizona is not the most, overall stacked lineup. Is becoming a really nice, Washington-esque sort of collection of veterans in a way, but also some young guys that they've drafted over the past couple of years. But like Zaven Collins is sort of entering his prime a little bit, I think, as well too. Maybe he's got to be starting to get there as well too, just in terms of the years in the career. But I think McBride's a little receiver heavy as well too. So Kelsey does bring the blocking value for sure. We're not gonna go back and pick Kelsey from the Chiefs, because if we do that, we're gonna go back and take Chris Jones or even McDuffie. Again, I'm still sitting here debating on whether or not Chris Jones is the guy that we take as our interior defensive lineman and as our overall Chiefs player. But this basically, for the Niners, would be narrowed down between Fred Warner and George Kittle. And I do think that, again, if we're bringing Washington back, you could say that we could get Bobby Wagner as our interior linebacker. Again, stacked defense. We get a more complete tight end in Kittle in this lineup to help our offense. But the Niners, and I guess Trent Williams as well too, at left tackle. We can't necessarily forget him. He might honestly be the pick. I guess I did just forget him, but he might be the pick as well. I mean, just if we're going Rem and Sam beloved team, just our guys, obviously Fred Warner and Trent Williams are going to be first team all Rem and Sam. So we would have multiple. I mean, Deebo Samuel would have been there back in the day. I mean, Deebo Samuel's still there, of course. But I don't know if he's going to be the Washington guy that we end up picking. But I just feel like, I guess speaking of schematic versatility, of course, Trent Williams is going to give you about as much schematic versatility as possible. You would say, is this the year at 37 where, I guess he did just turn 37, so he's not going to be 38 till next year? Hey, yo, chat. 40-year-old Trent Williams? But if we're gonna buy stock in any 37-year-old in the league, I guess it would be, again, just a freak athlete type player like Trent Williams. But what are we looking at? Fred Warner, 28. He's the peak of his powers, chat. Yeah, it might be Fred Warner. So honestly, that really is gonna hurt Washington's chances to get in this lineup, because otherwise it's going to go down to Josh Allen and Jane Daniels. And I guess we didn't officially type Josh Allen's name into the lineup. Hey, yo, we were debating that a little bit on the pre technical difficulty live stream as well. But of course, the linebacker spot there was the other elite spot for the Commanders. But Fred Warner leading our front seven from that middle spot is, I think, going to be the right pick from this team. So that does leave Kittle on the board. But again, I think we'll probably be okay with this team. But if we were playing, I guess, the second version of the lineup that did have Kittle, then that would, of course, get really interesting. But then, if their linebacker wouldn't be Fred Warner. So I guess, again, I would rather have Fred Warner in the other tight end than Kittle in the other linebacker, is basically what we're narrowing it down to. But again, we can't necessarily write Max Crosby off for the Raiders as well. And we did say GT. So I don't know if we have to figure out running back at this time. Do we go Arizona? Do we just lock in Trey McBride and make it easy? I don't know. Maybe we go Baltimore. Let's pick a stack team, because I think this might be a little bit easier than it may seem. Because Lamar, of course, obviously an option at quarterback. Hey, yo, Derrick Henry at running back. Running back, there's a lot of talent. And again, the varying degrees of talent, that's not necessarily going to matter in terms of the overall look of the lineup. But, and realistically, the production of the lineup as well, too. So they have to go into a playoff for this Coco Gauff, Tom Janovich match. Or playoff, I don't know, some extra innings. I don't know what the term for it is. But that seventh set or whatever, they got to win. But, okay, those would definitely be offensive options. I guess Mark Andrews, probably not as much of a tight end option as he used to be. I guess Sneaky Likely? Whoa, chat. Imagine if Likely was the pick from the Ravens, just because we needed a tight end. And he is a little bit versatile as well, too. But we are going to take Kyle Hamilton. That's just an easy pick. I'm going to be biased. If we're going to be biased with Fred Warner, then I feel like it's more likely to be biased with Kyle Hamilton, because, again, he's even got a little bit more youth in this conversation. And, again, like I was saying earlier, a guy that we can move around on defense. I know this is a basic defensive lineup, but Kyle Hamilton can cover a receiver. He can be a linebacker. He can be a safety. He can play multiple spaces. He's a versatile 3-and-D wing for the Ravens. So we just have a couple of defensive backs. That's why him and McDuffie and a couple other guys like that would have been crazy. Like a zone defense that's almost zone man hybrid of these guys. Just you take him, you just pick up defensive backs, almost pick up football style, just because they're that kind of got that crazy coverage range ability. Would have been nuts. I guess I almost said another name. Maybe the next name we should select. But honestly, Lamar might have a stronger case for. Well, again, the Bills. Rousseau probably doesn't have a stronger case to make this lineup as Kyle Hamilton. So I guess Lamar's case compared to Josh Allen, then, hey, chat, pause that. My hand motion there. But, those cases would be a little off just because of the rest of the roster around him. And Linderbaum at center, if we didn't have Creed Humphrey. So do we go Chris Jones and then Linderbaum at center? Hey, chat, something to keep in mind. For sure. Marlon Humphrey, a little bit on the outside looking in for that cornerback spot. But if you're going the individual, I always value what he does because the man coverage type stuff. And again, that stuff definitely jumps out as well, too, if you're not the same type of safety zone coverage, just absolute ball hawk. The way, that's probably, obviously, those are the best guys. But just that true sort of man up the corner one-on-one receiver. And obviously, Humphrey has his moments where he can be a little up and down at times. There's some games where, maybe something like the Jamar Chase matchups has not gone great, but, when have they ever for any corner? But, again, his physicality, he can hang with anybody in the league. He is definitely a guy that he's on our practice squad, respectfully, in a good way for this type of team where he's in the mix. He's like the Team USA Select. When the NBA does those pickup games for Team USA, and like Cooper Flagg was the one, obviously, from this past run, who was getting a ton of hype from, and not his hype alone wasn't generated off of that. Obviously, he was hype going into that, but in terms of the guy that wasn't already the All-Pro guy that was dominating the All-Pros, that was the guy. And Cade was another one. Me and Sam were watching those highlights, just being like, man, Cade is of course just a guy that we already had a ton of stock in, anyways. But you're watching him out there directly in games with those guys as the opponents on the court, and the way he's playing in those games, it's like, holy cow, he's going toe to those guys. So, again, Humphrey is that type of man-to-man corner where he's not quite, maybe another man-to-man corner in the AFC that I'm thinking probably is going to make this lineup. But if there were some injuries and, a couple of guys hurt, I don't know, like Humphrey is definitely, again, in the mix. But Hamilton has to be the one guy pick off of this lineup. He's just too special of a talent. Like, to have, again, him and Lamar as a 1-2 just building blocks is crazy. Just if we were just going combine talk, the football talent would be insane. Is this for the win right here, chat? Coco Gauff, match point. Okay. Deep breath. Here we go, chat. She's got the serve. The crowd goes quiet. I feel like we have to whisper just out of respect. We don't want to jinx it. The serve is up. Oh, the return is good, chat. We'll see how the volley plays out. Goff is a little bit on the run, but she's brought her up to the net, and it works out. Coco Gauff advances, chat. The U.S. Open. Here we go. I don't know, of course, the tennis history off the top of the head the same way, so knowing what majors she's won, and what majors anyway. The only one that I really know specifically, I guess, what's his name? Djokovic Djokovic with Wimbledon. I think that's his event. But Nadal with the French Open was, of course, him with the clay surface was just insane. But regardless, I guess the point I was going to get to was her winning, of course, in the U.S. as, this emerging U.S. superstar. If that hasn't happened, of course, that would be crazy. If this was the first time to actually have that achievement happen. Of course, this tournament, ultimately. Again, this is not the round. But, yeah, I don't remember if the U.S. Open was one that she had won in the past or not. And maybe she did win. Didn't she win the French Open this year or last or recently as well, too? Again, I don't remember the timeline of all this stuff. But regardless, she's been dominating. She's a 3 seed. As well too. The tennis fans know, chat. Just look for the tennis fans correcting me in the chat, and that's the right stuff, right there. But yeah, regardless, Kyle Hamilton is the safety on our perfect lineup for 2025. So the Ravens are now off the board, chat. Got a stacked player for sure. Not feeling bad about that. Oh, for some reason, I kind of want to Minnesota. I don't know, purple and gold. Let's just stick with the vibes, chat. It is what it is. Is this another easy one? Do we just go Jefferson here? But again, the defensive line is stacked. Maybe it is a little bit more the collection of guys between Grenard, Hargrave, Allen, and Van Ginkel, and also Dallas Turner. As well as, like, Dallas Turner is not even listed here. I don't know if there's an injury thing or if that's just Van Ginkel won the job. Ayo, chat. But I would still have Dallas Turner stock with him being the best edge of this group. I guess 63rd on the PFF grade as a rookie. Maybe he's a little more of the, pass, the pass focus scenarios. Maybe Van Ginkel in the run game a little more balanced. Like, Dallas Turner will definitely be out there for third downs. Make no mistake. You almost wonder, it'll get a little interesting. Do you go 5 pass rushers? You don't want to start telegraphing your stuff. But Turner does have a little coverage ability. Like, I don't know if, Pace and Cashman are pretty good linebackers. I think Pace, 47 on the PFF grade, but he's pretty good. Like, he'll definitely, above average starter. Cashman is, like, kind of a borderline Pro Bowl guy year to year for sure. But, you could definitely have Turner as, again, your second linebacker instead of Pace. And then him doing some coverage stuff could definitely be pretty productive. Metellus and Smith, like, you bring in Okuda, maybe takes a step forward, continued as a corner this year as well too. And our guy Isaiah Rodgers, like, they do have some good man-to-man corners, or at least some guys that are going to, again, compete man-to-man. But this might have to be Jefferson. Again, we only get 3 receiver spots, but are the receiver spots the easiest ones? I don't know, chat. Again, the receivers are on some pretty stacked teams. But we still got to go Jetta. That feels right for the Vikings. And honestly, anytime you bring up Justin Jefferson and the receiver battle, of course, the next name that jumps into mind is Jamar Chase. So I think that is appropriate for the next name to be brought up as well, too. So let's go to Cincinnati. And, Burrow, of course, we got to consider for quarterback. Cincinnati is a little top-heavy with the talent. They have, of course, a couple great receivers. Unfortunately for T. Higgins, he wouldn't necessarily be even mentioned for the Bengals because they have Jamar Chase. But they did re-sign Hendrickson as well. They re-signed him or did they give him a raise? It may have just been a raise. I guess I don't remember if there was an extension with that or not as well. He's definitely a guy to consider. He led the league in sacks, for sure. But low-key, it might be between Burrow and Chase. And if we think that the receiver is stacked enough that we're going to get another receiver and we already have Jefferson, then maybe we go Burrow. But I think I would personally just rather have Allen in this lineup. Burrow with these receivers and a good running, again, actually a great line, a good running game. Like, this would be an unstoppable game, unstoppable offense. Burrow would have 5,000 yards. Again, he wouldn't be playing with Chase. We can only have one guy per team. But he's still got his guy Jefferson. And I'm sure just LSU receivers alone, we could find a couple more. And a couple more on some teams where it would make sense. We could take Malik Neighbors off the Giants, and that would make total sense for our perfect lineup for 2025 as, their one representative as well, too. Or we leave the Giants off. But, again, the Bengals are a sneaky, we're not going to, again, they're not going to get left off because we're going to have one of Burrow or Chase. It is what it is. Gesicki as our tight end. But I think it's going to be Chase. But it may end up being Burrow. I didn't anticipate Burrow being our perfect lineup quarterback, but I'm not against that as well, too. And I maybe am leaning in a little bit to my Josh Allen, James Harden theory, where Burrow's maybe a little more Steph. And I don't know if the playoff success is equal there, because, again, Steph's got the championships over Harden in that conversation. Maybe you would say Burrow's a little bit more Westbrook, but, again, I feel like that's still in the same sort of James Harden type lane that we're talking about there with Josh Allen. Maybe Burrow's a little more Tatum. I don't know. Halliburton? Maybe Burrow's like Halliburton. Ooh, I don't know. Maybe Burrow seems like he's 2 seasons ahead of Halliburton on the timeline, but it does seem close enough for impact-wise. Maybe Burrow's like 2 spots ahead of Halliburton on the list as well, too, whatever that may be. But, yeah, we got Jamar Chase as our Bengals receiver as well. So that's right, chat. 2 R's. We're dumb. Ayo. We should know how to spell this guy's name. Shout out. So, Bengals off the board. I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be a balance of NFC and AFC teams as well, too. So we'll see how that plays out there. But for the next team, the offense is kind of rounding into shape. We've halted on our offensive line, but we got a good enough offensive line between these two guys. And our receiving core is obviously good enough. I mean, our team's good enough with these guys in general. Our salary cap's through the roof, Chad. Our owner somehow is broke. Hopefully it's not hopefully our owner's not Mark Davis. But yeah, Bengals, shout out. They are not going to get left off the list this time. Oh, chat, let's go to the Lions, because this is another, I think, kind of sneaky obvious one for me. Again, really a stacked team. The guys that were leaving off the list would be crazy. And the fact that we might have to leave Sewell, maybe this isn't obvious, chat, because Sewell at right tackle is tough. I guess the one that I was going to say for me, a shocker. I thought I was just going to lock in Aiden Hutchinson to this lineup. But again, his PFF grade, 94.9. I wonder if that is actually number 1 in the league. We don't have the advanced. We're not signed it. We don't have the advanced. We're not paying for PFF Plus. But if we sorted all their grades against each other, I wonder if that'd be the highest one. Here, let me go back to the Ravens real quick, because Lamar and Derrick Henry were right up there as well, too. Lamar is also a 94.9, and Henry's a 94.1. So let's double-check Josh Allen. I know that, Lamar had some better numbers, so I know Josh Allen 91.9 is on the PFF, not quite where Lamar was at there. But it was basically, I guess, Hutchinson and Lamar tied for the best players in the league. And here, let's go back to Myles Garrett as well, too. Because, again, Aaron Donald's retired. So the PFF grade all-stars are, Dallas. I guess Micah Parsons. What's Micah Parsons at? Oh, not even top 3 on the PFF grades. The disrespect, chat, is crazy. Garrett's at a 92.3. So he's the second edge, of course. Hutchinson was the first overall graded edge rusher. Unfortunately, didn't play that much. How many games did he play? Let's double check here. Maybe it was like 11 games, honestly. Maybe even half the season. I said that wrong. Unfortunately, was not able to play the rest of the year, I guess is the better way to say it. But was when he was playing, he was. Again, the eye test does match what that grade was. Because I was just saying that. I was like, wait a second. I'm about to say he was the best player in the league when he was playing. So he was playing enough to be the best player in the league. So I don't know what the... just immediately double talking. But, yes, Hutchinson was just the most disruptive defensive player in the league when he was on the field. So Sewell is also just maybe the most disruptive tackle in the league when he is on the field. Oh, chat, we might have to go back to the Lions. Shout out to Kirby Joseph as well, too. We can't necessarily forget about him. But there may be a couple other defensive backs. That could be a sneaky one. Like if we just if we don't have a couple other safeties that we like, I think we just end up taking Kirby Joseph as well, too. The Giants, let's stop making jokes here, chat. The Giants are a team. If we're going to get a defensive lineman, let's get one from the Giants because, of course, that's the strength of their team. Malik Neighbors, we did say, is an option. I don't know if Jackson Dart is a QB option quite yet. And I don't think they have any options on their offensive line, unfortunately. But they do have quite the stacked defensive line. So it's definitely going to be Dexter Lawrence in the interior. And that, again, makes up for the fact that we left Chris Jones on the board to take Creed Humphrey. Because we do know that we have Dexter Lawrence in this spot as well, too. So Giants are off the board. Though the Neighbors one was interesting. That's pretty close. There could be a case there by the end of the season. And again, the fantasy stuff is definitely going to help him as well, too. Shout out to Brian Burns. He's done, and, Thibodeau. Again, the defensive line is stacked. Carter, of course, the rookie, is going to be fun as well, too, in that rotation. But the other New York guys, we may have, the New York sack exchange might be back, chat, but it may be, cross the aisles working together. That's not maybe the right analogy for the sack exchange, but, there's something there. Are we going to end up taking Quinnen Williams as the other defensive tackle here. What was the PFF grade on him last year? Only 28th, but that doesn't really matter. We still know that he is up there with the elite in the league. And again, the Jets are a little depleted. So they are going to have a run game. And again, the defense is overall, I guess Sauce Gardner is the other guy as well, too, that we have to consider. We do only have the 2 cornerback spots on the actual lineup itself. So if we needed depth, then that would definitely be a choice. But let's hold off just in case there's another defensive interior guy that we like, because we could leave. The Jets could definitely be a leave-off candidate as well, too. Let me think. I guess the Titans would have been one that I was thinking to grab a defensive interior guy from. Of course, Simmons would be that guy. Shout out to Jeffrey Simmons. We could grab Zeitler, the guard, who they just brought in. We do have a guard spot left. We have Quentin Nelson and Zeitler locking down the guards. And then Sewell at a tackle spot. I mean, our offensive line is just going crazy at that point. Simmons, maybe a guy that I don't know if he'll ever make a first-team All-Pro. But again, consistent second-team All-Pro, Pro Bowl type performances, constantly, locked into the top 10 of the defensive interior line type spots. So I don't know if, again, we're just like racing to pick the 8th best tackle in the league for this spot. And, they haven't listed an end here, but that 3-4 defensive end, you just get some versatility as his spot for sure. Because the Eagles, of course, speaking of stacked defensive lines, would be the other one if we go Jalen Carter, or we go, I guess, would we take Jordan Davis over Jalen Carter? Who knows? Do we go Cooper DeJean? Again, he would fit in our versatility corner safety hybrid type spot. Whoa, Mulata? Is Mulata the best player in the league, chat? 95-2! Oh! It's got to be Mulata. Hey, yo, shout out. I mean, I guess it could be Lane Johnson as well, too. If we're also just going offensive lines. Leaving Jalen Carter on the board is going to be brutal. Just in terms of the high-level disruptive play. Again, speaking of being on and stacked up, Jalen Carter next to Dexter Lawrence and Myles Garrett would be, maybe the guy that ends up leading in sacks just because they're not focused on him and he's just being crazy. Just his athleticism would be unstoppable. But it's got to be, if Mulata's the best player in the league, then I guess it's got to be Mulata. Hey, shout out Jordan hopefully I'm saying his last name right, but I think it is Mulata, chat. Hey, yo, let's go. We got a tackle. We've got a Hall of Famer, future stud guy, I guess current stud, future Hall of Famer, whatever the order is. A guy that is just going to, maybe we don't even need the rest of the offensive line, chat. How do you spell this guy's name? Okay, here we go. I'm not paying attention. I'm just rambling. There we go. Eagles off the board, left tackle. It was going to be one of those foundational pieces. We didn't even mention A.J. Brown, Chad. That's how quickly that took a turn. I mean, just maybe our own favorite receiver in the league. And, of course, Barkley, one of the most impactful seasons a running back has ever had. We could have locked him into that spot on the roster as well, too. But 95-2 is crazy. Again, Hutch was, I think, for my own eye test, I guess I was just, again, there's the Michigan connection there, so there is, I'm going to be watching his plays a little bit individually more, but defensive lineman versus tackle, and I do like tackles. I don't know, Chad, might become a nerdier football fan. I do like watching tackles. Is it like when now I'm watching other types of movies because it's like, oh, I've always watched action movies, so now I'm watching horror movies. Like I've always watched, the normal parts of football, so now I'm just watching tackles play. So now we're going to be focused on Jordan Mailata next year, but guess what? I'm going to be locked in. Hey, yo, this guy's the best player in the NFL. It's not even he needs to prove it. It's PFF needs to prove their grading system because how do you got a guy graded over Hutch? Hey, yo, Chad. So we still have a spot for Sewell as well, too. That other tackle spot is available. And again, we got our guy from the Eagles on the left. And they got Bond as the number 1 linebacker as well. Shout out. We need a couple other linebackers. So that could be a spot of value that ends up working out, and we take a linebacker. from the Eagles, but I guess we did lock in the lineman for now. But Tampa would be another tackle option as well. And speaking of the separation of talent, Mike Evans, I guess, of course, we could take him for receiver. Maybe next year in Buka, who knows? But it might have to be our guy Wirfs. And we kick our guy Wirfs over to right tackle. I feel like maybe even the Eagles guy over to right tackle might be the move. The defense in the past, I think, has had, Diaby is kind of a sleeper fun pick more so than one guy off the roster, but he's not too far off. Winfield, the safety, would be another one. Oh, his grade from last year, I guess, is way off because he was first team All-Pro 2 years ago. So was PFF watching the games, or was I not watching the games? One of us is off, chat, because I still like Winfield. But again, balanced, a lot of veterans. They added some maybe in the right spot on the roster as well too, with bringing in a receiver. And Mayfield was our quarterback. Hey, yo, chat, that could be kind of fun, honestly. But I think this might have to be Tristan Wirfs in this. It's just Tristan Wirfs to get Aiden Hutchinson into this lineup. It might be worth it. But honestly, again, do we have a pronunciation guide for our guy here? Because I don't want to say his name wrong, of course. Oh, Pro Football Reference, step it up. Help us out. Mailata? I guess that's how that's what it looks like. But yeah, I guess him and Mailata and Sewell would just be crazy athletic. But I mean, obviously, so would Wirfs and him as well too. But we've got Wirfs from the Bucks. So now that we've got Wirfs, we're still keeping Kirby Joseph as a potential option, but yeah, Hutch and Myles Garrett as the two edge guys would also make sense. Because like I said, we're not necessarily focused on, yes, we're trying to get as close as we can to the best guy at each spot as well too. But it's the balance of taking one guy from each roster and figuring out what the best combination is when it's all said and done. So the fact that it lines up that we actually have the two best edge rushers in the league at the peak of their powers in Hutch and Garrett, and Dexter Lawrence as well too, would be fun. I guess TJ Watt would be the other guy in the mix. Just as I say, peak of the powers, best version pass rusher, TJ Watt would be the other guy. 91.7, not on Mailata level for performance in the individual year. There is the injury thing with him if we're just looking at him as an individual talent. Haywood as an interior guy still is definitely a great option. And I don't know if anybody else on the team is really going to jump out. They're low-key. Do they got Jalen Ramsey at safety? Hey, yo. We'll see how that goes. I guess Darius Slay and Porter is fun at the cornerback spot. So I guess, he was, again, I think a defensive versatile back in college as well, too. So, I wasn't necessarily saying that. I shouldn't have said it sounding so disparagingly, because I do kind of like it with the talent. The fact that they have potentially good corners does make that fun. And is it Deshaun Elliott at other safety? Okay, their secondary, again, their defense is going to be good. Not necessarily going to take a guy the perfect lineup off their secondary, but maybe we go TJ. I guess TJ Watt as a linebacker. You know what, chat? That might have to be it. Again, we were talking about Dallas Turner, the versatility of dropping him in coverage for the Vikings. I don't know if TJ Watt's going to be a coverage guy here, but we got Kyle Hamilton he can take a lot of that front seven area and just be there and tackling and the ball hawk turnover stuff. He'll be making plays in that spot of the field. So again, we're already going to be getting to the quarterback with Aiden Hutchinson, Dexter Lawrence, and Myles Garrett. But if TJ Watt is our fifth pass rusher / second linebacker, then that would be absolutely crazy. Again, Fred Warner's got great range as well too. So with him the thing is, Fred Warner is a great blitzer, so we're just going to be rushing 6 guys. It's going to be crazy, chat. Hey, yo, every time. But, yeah, him not necessarily having to focus on the blitz as well too, and not having to cover as long, would be pretty good. He actually is good in coverage, I think, when it is like kind of hit the tight end over the middle of the field, just like running into guys or initially kind of staying with people and just, again, kind of being around. But, yeah, I think TJ Watt is just going to make this defense too terrifying to go up against at this point. So Steelers, that's a close one, but their defense, I think, is one of the best units in the league looking at it. So, or, staying healthy, upside of that, could be one of the best units in the league. So that being represented is fair. So do we just lock in Quinnen Williams at this point and say he is our tackle? Because we could go Derek Brown from the Panthers as well. He is injured right now, so I don't know what his timeline for return is. They are unproven at this point at receiver. Again, we love Leggett and McMillan, but I don't think those guys are ready to be declared into the perfect lineup. Chua Hubbard's a sneaky one at the running back position, honestly. But is this kind of a bummer, like, Panthers thing to look at, that they don't have a standout guy in that type of way? Because, again, I love the receiving core and the offense, and Bryce Young is his potential to have the narratives returned and in a good way, and Canales seems like a great coach as well. So J.C. Horn, honestly, would be like the sleeper pick at corner, even though the grade is not, like, grading him out as one of the best. I do think that him as a lockdown guy on the outside would hold up really well. Scorton, their rookie defensive edge, maybe he's a major impact guy. And again, the offensive line is above average as well, too. Pretty decent. So honestly, we might be taking Chua Hubbard, or the Panthers are going to get left off, Chad. Are we going to lock the Panthers in as a get left off team? Because I think we might be able to find a running back somewhere else. So I don't want to necessarily, I guess, shout out to the Panthers fans, but hey, Panthers, we're not saying they're the first team that's locked in. It's just in the order that we're looking at them in, AO. But I don't know if we're gonna end up taking a guy off the Panthers. So AO, but Leggett, if we need like a kick returner, does he do kick returns? Because he could be pretty terrifying in that role, for sure. But let's go with the Rams, chat, because Verse would have been another edge guy that I would have really considered as well too. If we, I guess, had to go, if we were getting really picky with the lineup and going Sewell maybe for the tackle, and then we could go Verse for edge, or maybe Kirby Joseph for safety. You know what, chat? That's not bad. That's not bad. Kirby Joseph at safety, Jared Verse at edge, because Verse could be a guy that's right now on the outside looking in, but next year could definitely be. I'm saying this kind of easily, but I am reconsidering it as I'm saying it, and I'm going to double down. I think he could definitely be a top 5 edge rusher in the league by the end of next year. I'm not locking it in that's going to happen, but I would put him on the list of guys. I guess he's already 7th in, PFF's grading system. So, hot take from me over here. But, yeah, him just continuing to be that, and him getting into that conversation of names of, yes, Verse is like an actual top 5 edge rusher in the league, I think is definitely something that could happen. So if we were buying stock in guys and trying to actually project this out the right way, then you know what? He could sneaky take like the Myles Garrett spot. Again, it wouldn't be is he better than Myles Garrett next year? But if Myles Garrett is in requested trade mode and the Browns are bad and he doesn't necessarily want to spend these specific years as, maybe recovery gets a little bit more touchy. Like, he may not necessarily want to spend these years on just wasting his minutes on losing teams. So if we end up with like a weird Myles Garrett plays 6-game season, then he's kind of, again, in a separate eligible? Ayo, chat, we got it there. Ineligible part of the list, if that's even the right word to use. But, he's kind of in that weird just, not eligible. Part of the list is the better way to say it. But, again, maybe Nakua is just the right way to go here for the third receiver, because we did already pass on A.J. Brown because we did take, again, the tackle from the Eagles as well. Jefferson and Chase are the other two obvious picks. And as I'm just quick thinking of the receivers, I think a lot of those other teams are pretty stacked. But the Texans are maybe a balanced team, But Will Anderson is an edge. We do have 2 guys on defensive line already. So do we go Verse do we go Myles Garrett on the interior and then Verse as our edge guy? Oh, chat. We might be cooking now. We might actually be actually building a little roster here that is getting creative. Who was even the guy that we were just going to look at? Ayo. I just totally forgot where we were going to go next to compare. Oh, well. I guess it doesn't really matter. Oh, receiver. We were going to go Houston, chat. That's what it was. I was thinking defensive line there for a second. Okay. I'm back. It was receiver Nico Collins, because it would be Stingley, would be the other guy that we're potentially considering for this as well, too. If we were going to go corner, Stingley would be a good choice. You know, Stroud, sneaky, a good quarterback choice as well. Maybe we're just, again, we should have probably locked in Josh Allen a long time ago because, again, there really is nobody else in the Bills that we're going to take. But am I sneaky still debating Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels? Of course not, chat. Of course not. That's obviously not what's happening here right now. Especially not with the fact that, again, putting Jaden Daniels in the stacked lineup with a good offensive line would be interesting to see. But I think this does have to be Nico Collins, chat. Let's do that for now. Hey, yo, because, again, we can leave teams off. So we don't have to... I don't know if I'm subconsciously thinking that we have to try to work every team into this lineup. But this is a crazy lineup. This is a tall lineup as well, too. So there is a get off the bus factor with these 3 receivers. Definitely. Did we lock in a tight end? We didn't lock in a tight end yet because the Niners are off the board. We don't have... We still have Bowers and McBride, like we were saying, on the board as well, too. So the receiving threats would be just insane. The yards after the catch as well too, between Bowers and Chase and Nico Collins, would just be crazy. And Jefferson even as well. But we could use Jefferson as a slot. I mean, we could mess all these guys around in the slot and just be pause. But we could Chase with the speed, or we could Jefferson's route running and get off the line ability could really be put to use there as well too. Nico Collins is the vertical threat, working over the middle of the field, but then his in-breaking routes would be really deadly here as well. So I really do like our receiving core, obviously. And then, Garrett as our defensive line, our second interior defensive line guy. So we could reconsider bringing Chris Jones back, but then we would have to take Kyle Hamilton out and put Linderbaum in as our center. And then find another safety. So honestly, the safety depth, if we take a closer look at it, maybe we'll be more encouraged. But I do like the way that this defensive line is going to shake out with Myles Garrett on the interior. Because I've always kind of wanted to see this as well, too. And this is actually kind of how I would want to build a defensive line. Again, Buckner is a little bit defensive end-ish with his interior game. So I don't know if we've been influenced by that over the last couple of years here, but the versatility of a defensive interior guy, and again, a really athletic one like Lawrence, you could kick him out to the edge and he's just going to get work done because he's crazy. But just the actual defensive edge that's just got the crazy bulk, that's Verse honestly could get there as well too. He's crazy strong, and as he gets older, you could almost see him being a little more hand in the ground as well too. But Verse on the edge, and they got Verse listed as Verse is a little more linebacker as well. So if we really go Verse and TJ Watt as our linebackers, that would be crazy. Again, we'd almost be lacking in coverage at that point. We'd really have be in gauge 8 every time. We'd have to get a sack. It'd be the ultimate version of the Giants defense at this point. It'd be sack or basically no play. I know we'd be disrespecting our elite secondary at that point. But yeah, I know Verse may have not been a lock for the perfect lineup. And I guess, we're leaving Puka Nacua off for Nico Collins. That's going to eliminate Stroud, like we were saying, and Stingley as well, too. So our defensive line is set. Our perfect lineup defensive line, Aiden Hutchinson, Dexter Lawrence, Myles Garrett, and Verse. Chat. That's actually perfect. It literally is perfect. Verse, I think, is going to be right there this year. Hopefully that's not 2025. The guy was just having a fun couple of weeks for some reason. But I think he is a legit talent for sure. And again, was the conversation in the draft, I feel like, is what's maybe more important to be remembered sometimes than the actual draft order itself. Because, again, you almost go into the narrative of him being like the second or third defensive lineman off the board, but it's like all those guys were right there at the same spot. So him being the best one, but then, oh yeah, he's also maybe also, elite as well too. He was the elite, and he's going to ascend past those guys quicker, is not necessarily super surprising as well too. So we have potential now to go for a little bit more coverage-based linebacker, but let's get some of these coverage guys actually locked in, because the other obvious corner option is going to be Surtain from the Broncos here. The line is good. We could go Murez as a guard if we are potentially saying that right. We do need another guard spot, if I'm not mistaken. Where our offensive line's not quite ready. So we don't want to forget about that. That is kind of a sneaky one. But we got Zeitler on the Titans if we need him as well. So I think we can confidently take Surtain out of this lineup. Benito's not going to be a bad guy to look at next year. I think he's going to have a big year. He might be in a contract year as well, too, so there's going to be that extra motivation. And Hufanga, the tight end. Greenlaw, the linebacker, is brought into Denver for his first season, so bringing over some of the Niners guys can't be bad. But Surtain, obviously, I think has to be the first corner off the board here. So that still does, I guess that leaves the Jets available as well too, because we did have Quinnen Williams as an option for the interior of the defensive line. But again, we kicked Myles Garrett in the interior and brought in Jared Verse. So I guess we're saying that Jared Verse is going to take Quinnen Williams' spot in sort of the overall defensive line conversation. You know what, Chad? I wouldn't necessarily not stand on that take. That's for sure. And if we can bring in Sauce Gardner for our perfect lineup cornerback, that would be a good way to skirt around that as well too. But leaving the Jets off would be a tough look, I think, with just the top end talent of those two guys. And Quincy Williams as the linebacker is another great option as well too. But we definitely still need to consider, I think, a couple more teams before we just lock that in. So let's go with the Chargers, Chad. AFC West. Let's go with another AFC West here team. Could the Chargers be a sneaky leave them off? I mean, they still have Derwin James, so if we're just going the Madden ratings, the name value, the social media pick in a good way, again, he's good, so he's deserved all the hype that he's gotten, and we've got the hype as well too. But I don't know if he's the second best option. No Slater at tackle. He would have been a good tackle option. They do have Alt going forward. He might be a guy that ascends into this conversation as well too. Seemed to have a pretty productive rookie season. McConkey as a receiver. We do have a receiver spot locked in though, so we don't really have a spot for McConkey. Khalil Mack, defensive line. Again, our defensive line's taken up, so he's right there, chat. But he, of course, is. Does he go into ageless wonder territory? I guess maybe if any guys in their mid-30s, just unless it's Aaron Rodgers, but he's also in his 40s. So maybe 40 is the new 35. I don't know. We're talking ourselves into Aaron Rodgers now at this point by looking at Khalil Mack's grades. But he is one to consider if we had a roster spot for him. So is this timing, or is this actually a good take? Because this is maybe the problem with going in this order of the exercise as well too, Chad. Like, what do we do with the Chargers at this time? Because we have a full defensive line, but we could definitely bring in Khalil Mack. I guess we'd have to bring in Khalil Mack over Jared Verse at that point and go against everything said. So we're bringing in Puka Nacua as our receiver, and then we've got who is the guy we just brought in as our? We got Khalil Mack as our defensive line. So then we would account for the Rams. And then maybe Stingley would be our second corner at that point. We'd have Surtain and Stingley. And then we could also have Stroud at the quarterback spot. Okay, we'll keep it in mind, chat. We'll keep it in mind. We are trying to build the perfect lineup, so we are willing to change our mind if we think there is a tweak that will make it a little bit better. But imagine the Chargers getting left off the list. They're a team that could almost be a sleeper AFC championship type team with Harbaugh and Herbert, and you would expect them to be a talented team. I mean, they do have a lot of talented guys, but I guess nobody that would jump out as a potential best of the best in that type of way. So, the Chargers would have been a team that I would have not have expected to be on the list. To be honest, the Dolphins are one that I really do expect to be on the list, and we might just go ahead and put them on the list now because we don't need a receiver. We could argue Tyreek Hill, I guess, over, Nico Collins maybe if we wanted to, but his speed again with these two guys, his speed alone would just be a great addition to have. So that type of variety. I guess we do have Jamar Chase with the speed though, so who knows if he's 100% Tyreek Hill fast, but he's fast enough to shift the defense. That's for sure. And again, we got Puka, we got AJ Brown, we got other options to go to for receivers if we were wanting to, again, really, I guess, do the bit well, but also, again, maximize every single team in a way, then yes, we probably would take a receiver from them. But I also don't know if we trust Tyreek Hill going into this year or not to be productive in a game with this lineup is one thing, but for him to be like a top 3 receiver in the league is maybe a little bit of a rich ask at this point. So I feel like even if there's some Dolphin players that can have good seasons, for sure. I mean, Jalen Phillips I really like. Bradley Chubb, if he's healthy and back, he should have a good year. Smoke Robinson, Chop Robinson, Ayo, Smokey Robinson, Ayo. Who we listening to over here to chat? But Chop Robinson is a guy that can have another a really productive season for him as well too, as an up and coming player. And Steeler has been, the defensive line. They've got good players, for sure. Got Minka Fitzpatrick back, like it definitely could be not a disastrous team, but I don't know if we need anybody in for the perfect lineup. Achane maybe as our running back, but it would probably only be Tyreek Hill. Do we take a coach, chat? I didn't even think about taking a coach. I was saying McDaniels was our coach. Hey, yo, maybe that's not the case, but that would add another team. Oh, chat, that would really make things interesting. Oh man, a live pivot into a new way to do the team. Taking a coach. Because if we take Andy Reid, then the Chiefs are totally off the table. We need a new center at that point. We would take, we've taken all the good teams. So I don't know, from the guys that we take LaFleur. LaFleur's left. Shanahan's no, we took Shanahan because of the Niners. LaFleur jumped off right away. Maybe we write the coach down and save him for later. See where we take all the talent. And then the players are more important than the coach, right? I guess it depends on who the coach is. If it was Andy Reid, we might take Andy Reid first overall if we were starting off early and then get hot takey. But you know what I do, now that we've maybe saved ourselves from some crazy hot takes, and not to say that would be crazy, but I do think that we may get some good coach value as well, too. Somewhere else. Do we take Steichen off? Did Quentin Nelson take Steichen? I don't know if that's the move here. Surtain and Sean Payton is an interesting battle, though Surtain's a good enough corner, obviously. It's the best in the league that I think we have to lock him in there. Though Verse and McVay, I guess, becomes the battle. That would be the case, and then we would open up that defensive line spot again. We could bring in an interior guy. We could bring in another edge guy, because I do like the idea of Myles Garrett on the interior as well. But I feel like a Packer player, we wouldn't, I don't know if a Packer player is going to have a better season than Verse, I guess. Hey, yo, is that the take? Verse is going to have a better season than any Packers player. Sorry to the Packers players out there. Is Jordan Love a sneaky quarterback? He'd almost have to be. Oh, McKinney the safety. Yeah, it's got to be McKinney, chat. McKinney is third. I guess I would have said maybe second best safety in the league last year behind Hamilton, so it's close enough. Also, Jacobs at running back, individually a better year, I guess, on the grade than McKinney. But I think we can hold off on running back. Again, we'll be fine there. Safety, now that Joseph is off the board with the Lions being gone with Aiden Hutchinson on our team, we need a safety. We're probably not going to take Minka Fitzpatrick off the Dolphins. Shout out to Minka Fitzpatrick. I still have stock. He would definitely be good on a lineup. At some point, if you can't draft from all the best guys in the league and you need to get a little creative, then yeah, Minka Fitzpatrick is probably a good option if his contract's a good value. But we will take McKinney for sure. McKinney is a little bit more of an actual kind of coverage type safety, I think. But he is great next to the safety like Kyle Hamilton, who has that versatility and the ability to take in some of the run game stuff and play in the box a little bit. But so can McKinney. He can play up in the front seven as well too. But I think he can almost transition kind of free safety, I think, in a way, and play back if we needed him to. So LaFleur off the board, chat. Hey, yo, we're taking McKinney off the Packers. But we did say that McVay is right there as well. So maybe Mike McDaniel is our pick. We take Sean McDermott? I don't know. Well, just to not take Josh Allen, I guess, for what point? Because I guess we were not going to take Zach Taylor, but we're not going to take Burrow either because we have Chase at that spot. Gannon from the Cardinals. Gannon. We could take Rich Gannon. We could take Jonathan Gannon from the Cardinals. That could be kind of a sneaky coach pick. Hey, yo, chat. Harbaugh from the Chargers? Ooh, maybe that's the move, chat. We keep Verse. We did say that the Chargers are that kind of team. A lot of veterans, a lot of balance. Sorry, Khalil Mack maybe not going to get there. But maybe not quite the first-team All-Pro guy, I guess, outside of if Khalil Mack bounces back. So Jim Harbaugh. Hey, yo, in a shocking turn of events, Jim Harbaugh is the coach of Team Rim and Sam for 2025. That's actually perfect because, again, he's a top 5 coach, and we keep Verse. We need Verse in this lineup. Again, Verse is obviously going to play well on this team, but he is definitely going to be, lock it in, chat. Where's the FanDuel? Can we get the bets? Let's do it right now. Pause. Let's see if Verse has sack props. Hey, yo. That's another crazy one. Ooh, defense, special teams. Here we go. Do we have options for Verse total sacks? Over 7.5? Lock it in, chat. What was Verse at last year? Verse, was he double digits or was he at 8? He might have been at 8. But, 4.5? Oh, chat. That's going to go way up. He's going to be double digits this year. What was he at in the playoffs? 2 in 2 games in the playoffs, you see? 1 sack per game. He's going to be 14 sacks. What is he to lead the league, honestly? Like, legitimately to lead the league, is there a full season option here? I guess it would be the league leaders tab. Let's see if we can find that one. League leaders, is it still an option? Future specials might be. This is like the random future specials. They don't have league leader options anymore? Oh, chat. We have missed out. Oh, season leaders. Here we go. Looking for league leaders. Season leaders. Oh, they just have it for offense. FanDuel, step it up. Get your, interceptions. Why can't I bet on who's going to lead the league in interceptions? That could be fun. So, defensive player of the year, 15-1. Ooh, see, he is high up on the list. Like, we did leave Parsons off the list. Sorry, Cowboys, we haven't looked at your team yet. Hey, yo, it is what it is. We actually left the defensive player of the year favorite off the list, but Hutchinson's there, Watt's there, Garrett's there, Bosa's there, and Verse is there. So I don't know if this is a trade request thing. Who else is in the mix? Crosby, Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Benito, Hendrickson, Surtain, Chris Jones, Hamilton. Okay, we're back to the guys that are on the list at that point. So do we have to reconsider our coach now? Sean McVay for Jim Harbaugh and bring in Parsons over Verse? Can Parsons be our other linebacker? Ooh, chat. Our linebacker spot is a little weird at this point, but I think the true interior linebacker is not quite. It's a little like the tight end, not the strongest position in the league. That's for sure. Those positions are a little bit, not as stacked as the rest of them in the short of it. So, yeah, let's go Parsons and Sheet at linebacker. Again, the coverage stuff is not going to be 100%, but that's okay. This team is going to be fine. We're going to be pressuring the quarterback. It is a fun defense, though, because, again, it's not the most traditionally set 4-3 type team. We're really running the classic, 6-man front and one linebacker is, of course, how everybody runs a team in 2025. But the defense, we've only got one cornerback spot left. So the Cowboys off the board. Okay, so Cowboys fans are going to be okay. Do we need to pick an owner, chat? Jerry Jones is an owner? Hey, yo, I don't know if that would be the pick, but that would be funny. A documentary character for the team, Jerry Jones, just for the documentary sake of it. And Jerry Jones did win a Super Bowl, so guess what? If he had this team, he might actually be okay if that was the case. But let's take a quick break, chat. I guess we'll still go for a little bit more. Our flight is tomorrow, so we only just have to, go to bed and enough time to wake up. So we got enough time to try to keep figuring out the rest of this perfect lineup for the 2025-2026 season right after this. Okay, chat, we are back working our way through the 2025-2026. What is the 2025-2026 perfect lineup? We are picking one player from each team to fill up a roster spot. 22 spots, of course. 10 teams will be left off, and we are, working our way, mostly getting done at this point. But we do have a couple of spots left, and who's to say that this 1.0 chat. Hey, yo, who's to say that this is actually the perfect version of the lineup? There could be tweaks that could be made as well. And we did add a coach. We may start adding staff members, and we considered an owner. If we add an announcer duo, it doesn't necessarily going to take away from the team specifically. It's like a league pass situation. But it does feel like Spiro Deebs does call a lot of Colts games. So we could... I guess we were the radio announcers. We could take a radio team for sure. I wish I knew the radio teams a little bit more as well. I used to, I guess listen to some of the radio a little bit more. But in listening to the ESPN radio, of course, they're playing the radio call highlights on that. So I would know some of the voices of some of the guys. The one voice that I feel I'll never forget as a play-by-play guy, of course, the Colts play-by-play guy is iconic. But the number one, I guess, play-by-play guy that is just in my memory when I think of radio play-by-play guys for a team specifically is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play-by-play guy. I do not know what his name is. I feel like it's something like Gene Hackman, so I don't know if that is. I'm going to go look it up. The mystery is fun, chat. Ayo, shout out to that guy. We're just going to pretend his name is like Gene Hackman, but not Gene Hackman, I guess. But yeah, his voice is iconic. He's got some great calls. And there was a DVD documentary piece that I guess I still have, but used to watch all the time about this Colts comeback on Monday Night Football. That's like just one of the great comebacks of all time. It's like a 28, maybe 21 point comeback with like 2 minutes left. Like legitimately 3 touchdowns in 2 minutes. Just awesome stuff by Manning and Harrison in that group. But they have a lot of the Bucks play-by-play call guys in that documentary video piece, and I'll remember his voice from that. But then from just a lot of those ESPN radio highlights as well too. Again, his voice was one of the unique ones that really stood out. So maybe I'll get back into it and we'll update you with who are the best radio guys in the NFL for the teams right now. If that's even, are they still got NFL radio guys for the team? But maybe we'll add some water boys. I don't know which team's got the best water boys in the league. We'll see. But we got a couple of spots left for the initial team here. We didn't lock in tight end yet, but I think it's probably going to be Bowers at this point just to get a first name on. So the Cardinals are at risk of being left off. Marvin Harrison, all the talent in the world for sure. We still have belief that he can be a great player. But we do have our receiver spots loaded up. They have a lot of veterans. Josh Sweat could be an interesting outside-looking-in edge guy for sure. But with the list of guys that we have right now, we're probably not going to quite get to his name there. And maybe Paris Johnson. I guess we do have tackles, though, as well. We'd have to go double-check their guards as well. So, yeah, Simons is not going to make this version of the list. So, again, Zeitler's the lead contender right now for that last guard spot. So, shout out to Tennessee for having a couple of guys, though, in the mix. I think that says something about what they might be next year. Let's actually double-check. I've been really thinking Tennessee's probably not going to win the AFC South, but somebody random's got to win. There's plus 650 to win the AFC South. I got to be honest, chat. You got to bet that. You kind of got to bet that. Because there is a scenario. I mean, the Texans do have, I guess, slightly better receiver in Nico Collins, slightly better defense overall, and even if Cam Ward plays really well this season, maybe a slightly better quarterback in C.J. Stroud with Texans. But the offensive line situation, like Cam Ward could be well protected, and the production, I guess, that he could produce could be pretty similar. So them at plus 650 is an interesting bet. And I guess if you just want to parlay that with a couple of easy ones just to make it more fun and definitely guarantee that you'll lose it, like, go ahead and do that as well, too. Tampa Bay minus 105 to win the NFC South. Atlanta plus 220. You get that with the Titans at plus 650. I mean, you're paying rent, chat. You're paying rent. The Raiders are not gonna win the AFC South, but yeah, there's some interesting bets. Just the odds right now are looking kind of interesting. We'll see how that actually plays out in the mental state of it all going into the season here. But yeah, we did get the Chargers off the list. We took their coach, Harbaugh. I guess we did say Gannon was a potential for the Cardinals. Again, we had 22 guys deep, takes all the coaches off the board. And, pause. And then Gannon is still a really good coach, I think. I would assume that he continues to be a really good coach. It seems like he's turning in that direction from what he had last year. So he is an option. Yeah, Vikings are off the list. We crossed the Dolphins off the list. Are we going to cross the Jags off the list? I can't bring myself to do it, even though I'm not a big Jags fan, obviously. But the Hines Allen is obviously a great talent. We've got, of course, I guess we could say Travis Hunter is like a flex option. Do we need to bring in a kick returner? And I guess we wanted to bring in Leggett earlier. So I guess we were, Brian Thomas, our guy as well, too, for sure. But I think that they're not going to quite stack up. Allen's close. The thing is, Allen is close, and I don't know how cute we get with the lineup to where we might need him as well. But again, he's kind of a definite guy. So if Verse is kind of standing out and we end up going McVay, but again, the problem is the Chargers also have defensive line. So it just gets a little repetitive about switching out defensive line and coach guys as well. So we know we have a couple of different, combos to potentially have. But it's still the same roster spots that we're debating over at the end of the day. So it's like just throwing Allen's name into the stack debate as well, too. Do we go Drake May for the quarterback? Guys that are way best players in their team? Like, that is an interesting, see where he ranks in that. Ooh, Christian Gonzalez is not bad as well. That's a little bit projecting. We could go Peppers at safety. Ooh, Chad, it might be Peppers. It might have to be. I guess we do have. Who do we have as our other safety? I forgot already. McKinney from the Packers over Peppers. I guess we can't have another 12 man on the field situation. We already had 3 tackles in our initial lineup. So we go with the 12th defensive player and just say, hey, refs, don't look. We need to get a draft a guy to pay off the refs. Where's Donahue? But I guess wrong sport. Does he want to get involved in the NFL? Maybe he starts reffing games. So we'll just secretly have 12 players on the field. Spillane as a linebacker is probably not going to quite crack the list. They did have that guy playing really well. Tavai? Is he still on the team? I forget his act. Let me see if we can find him here. If he's still... Oh, Jelani Tavai is an edge. They have him listed as an edge. I guess, is that the guy that I'm thinking of? Hey, yo. Did they move him from linebacker to pass rusher? I guess his linebacker production dropped off, according to Pro Football Focus. Barmore is a guy that I guess should be in consideration as well, too. But the Patriots are sneaky going to get crossed off the list. It's not a disrespectful thing. They would obviously be on the higher end of, I think, teams getting crossed off the list. But, the Panthers as well, too, could be a feisty team as well. The Dolphins may be like an 8-win team, and we have them crossed off. It just would be like a kind of a bummer 8-win team, and not necessarily what you want from some of the high-end talent that they have. Maybe we go Owenahu as the guard. We do need another guard as well. And Drake May is probably not going to take over Josh Allen or Jaden Daniels quite yet in our preseason lineup. Maybe, we revisit it at the end of the year. But preseason, I think we got to stick to our guns and pick between one of those two guys. So Peppers in at corner. We do need a second corner. I guess we can't take Alexander off the Packers anymore. That would have been our go-to pick. And then he got waived. Hey, yo. So, wait, was he on the Ravens? Is that where he was at? Hey, yo. Taking Alexander off the Ravens? Probably not. But still taking Kyle Hamilton. Keon White maybe gets into like a top 15 type conversation. A Pro Bowl for Keon White? I could see it. But I don't know if we go Christian Gonzalez over Sauce Gardner quite yet. If we had some balls and we wanted to say that Christian Gonzalez was going to be a better corner than Sauce Gardner at the end of the season, then maybe. But I still have Sauce Gardner's stock, so he still would be a guy that I would bet on to be elite as well too. But how am I forgetting this guy, chat? Hey, yo, I just realized who our next corner is going to be. Lock it in. Devon Witherspoon. That's an easy pick. If we can't get McDuffie, give me Witherspoon. Hey, yo. Give me, shout out, shout out OJ. I don't know, I have another way to say it, but, give me some Devon. Hey, yo. I guess the ones that know, they'll know. But, yeah, he fits right in with the corner, kind of can play multiple positions in the defensive backfield. Kind of a slot corner, I think. Like maybe a Cooper DeJean type, ideally, where he's not necessarily on the outside one-on-one, locking down the best receiver the entire time. You want him blitzing a little bit. You want him in some freewheeling, ball hawking situations, and then in some coverage stuff as well, too. But we have Surtain. So if we went with... See, this would almost be an interesting... Do we take McKinney out and go with a third corner in this situation? I mean, I do really love McKinney. So I'm not necessarily eager to sub him out of the lineup. I am just thinking... Again, we do need a little bit of coverage because we do have a lot of pass rushers as well, too. So TJ Watt and Micah Parsons, we maybe have them dropping like 5 to 6 yards in coverage if we need it. They're going to take care of the flats. And then Kyle Hamilton and Witherspoon are going to have to rally and tackle. It's going to be a tired defense by the end of the season. Make no mistake. But maybe if we get a third slot corner in there, that'd be interesting. We did take the lineman from the Eagles. So see if we went like DeJean from the Eagles, then we could now see we got to bring in Sewell for the Lions, and then we have to find another pass rusher. Then we bring in Mack from the Chargers, and now we're needing a coach at that point as well too. So we're not feeling bad about this lineup. Make no mistake. And I think Witherspoon's definitely going to be on it for sure. I guess, is he going to be... Are we trying to project the All-Pro team as well? I don't know if that's necessarily the case. In some degrees, I guess this is, probably not going to be too far off if we're getting super hot. It's definitely a safe pick for the All-Pro team for next year. Again, you imagine Kyle Hamilton, Surtain are easy picks. A handful, half of these edge rushers are going to be there. Maybe. Good chance Creed Humphrey's second team. First or second team for a bunch of these linemen and receivers as well, too, depending on who ascends. But, again, I guess, like we're saying, All-Pro is going to have multiple guys from the same team. So, for this version of the team, one guy for each team, it would be slightly different for the representatives there. We don't have a running back yet. We're not necessarily having any major overlaps with the other quarterbacks. With the, again, we're not necessarily considering Rousseau for the edge. So, we don't necessarily have those, like, Washington or Bills guys to focus in for the rest of the roster as well too. But again, I guess Witherspoon was probably going to be like a top 10 defensive back in the league this year. I guess, yeah, second team All-Pro is definitely very realistic. First team is realistic as well too. I'm just, not necessarily being super definitive with the takes, but he's obviously a safe pick for building a roster, certain type of guy. But yeah, Seahawks pick, he's definitely the player that I would want as the representative. I guess, maybe Jay Asen at receiving, Kenneth Walker for 8 games. Maybe you want Kenneth Walker as well, too. Probably, I guess we do have to give Leonard Williams credit as well because he has been playing fantastic since going to the Seahawks, remembering his PFF grade from looking at it in the past. And we do have Garrett at edge. So if we went Leonard Williams at tackle, that would kick Verse out. Make McVay our coach. And then open up a Chargers guy. And then we're probably bringing in Derwin James at safety at that point. Because, again, we're not replacing the edge guy with the edge guy we just replaced. So they're replacing Inception? Ayo. But, yeah, Witherspoon is a good slot corner pick for now. And, I mean, could Witherspoon have been DeJean last year if he's just on that Eagles roster? Probably pretty similar results. Could Witherspoon have picked off Mahomes in the Super Bowl is basically the question. And you know what, chat? I kind of think he could have. If Mahomes is throwing picks in the Super Bowl, I mean, Devon Witherspoon could have gotten one of them. That is for sure. So, yeah, we don't have a Jaguar yet. We do have a Cowboy. We do have Bengals. We don't have a Bear. Okay. That could be an interesting conundrum because they are, again, a balanced team. Good defensive line. Ooh, this may be a Tooney spot. We may be grabbing Tooney here. Who knows? With the Chiefs giving up on an offensive lineman, what that means. But also, you know, he could just still be really good and expensive. And, you know, now they paid for other guards and they brought in an actual level. Like, was Tooney playing tackle for him? And now he gets kicked into guard, and now they have an actual tackle. Like, magically, they, I guess, didn't know that they were going to get a tackle in the draft, but they got the perfect replacement. Like, somehow it works out. Who knows how that scripted stuff, that unscripted stuff, ayo, wink, wink, actually ends up working out. Hey, chat, somebody just crashed our Pluto TV. Hey, yo, we're just casually trying to have Beverly Hills Cop 3 on next to the U.S. Open. But apparently that's not allowed. So wait a second. Let's get this fired back up here. Because, I mean, come on. We got to have Eddie Murphy on the second TV, obviously. So Tooney might be the leader for the Bears. And honestly, if the Bears were a left-off roster, that would be bad. Because, again, the quarterback stuff is going to be enough of a question mark this year. And not to say that, I guess we, say it however you want. But, there is just, obviously, we don't know what we're going to get from that performance. And it's a first-time head coach, a new system for Caleb Williams, because of that as well. And him having success in the NFL at a major level, like, we just need to actually visualize, see a visual way, and not in a disrespectful way as well. Again, he's a rookie. He gets the chance to develop as a prospect. But at some point, you do actually, you don't need to see the development. So it's just like, are we going to see it this year? And the roster is, again, really, really good. But with the stacked guys that we have right now, I don't know if anybody's taking their spot. Jalen Johnson would be another guy as well, too. If we went Jalen Johnson, like, he might actually be a true cover corner. If we went Jalen Johnson over Witherspoon, but Witherspoon at safety, I would actually kind of like that. So if this was just like a flex defensive back spot, do we need to have two linebackers? Do we need to have a flex spot on defense? Ayo. Because that might still, from a talent standpoint, just leave us with Micah Parsons and TJ Watt as one of our other flex guys. But versatility-wise, maybe we go defensive back and get a little extra coverage. Because, again, we're really between those four linemen, we're obviously crazy rushing the passer. So we could just really load up on coverage guys in the back 8-7. Ayo, we can't do math. Back 7. But maybe if we're just still trying to build the most talented roster, this is the right version of it. And again, Jalen Johnson, I guess he can be arguably the best cornerback in the league. I think Surtain, his name value really holds that. He's really going to hold that belt pretty strong for right now. But again, game to game, he definitely has moments. I think you can look at some of the good there's probably good matchup stats. I guess last year it'd be if they got equalized out a little bit. But again, at his best, he's had some really good performances against some really good receivers. But we do need a guard as well. So Tooney might be the option. And the fact that they get a guy protecting Caleb Williams in our perfect lineup is probably sneaky second best case scenario for just the whole quarterback situation as well. But maybe Ben Johnson is a sneaky coach candidate for this team as well too. Like, kind of seriously could be a real option. Again, the first time coach, which is no pedigree, just perfect lineup. I guess it's a first time head coach, but it wouldn't be a bad, he's cooking up something with this team as well too. And if we're going this deep into the player cycle, then that would be a pretty good choice. But like, if it was a fantasy situation, $1 Ben Johnson, that would be, that would be a good, what kind of fantasy football situation is what we're talking about. That would be a good run. But I think the way the Harbaugh thing played out with the Chargers is actually kind of perfect in this lineup. So it's going to be hard to replace him there as well too. So we really just need a quarterback and a running back to complete the complete the lineup at this point. So I guess we kind of just go Josh Allen for quarterback. Again, we can't take Mahomes because we have a Chief. We have Creed Humphrey as our center, so that also took Chris Jones off the board as well too, unfortunately. But it was a smart football thing to do because, again, we got Dexter Lawrence and, Myles Garrett as our other interior guys. So Josh Allen is our quarterback, and I guess we go Bijan at running back because, again, Saquon is off the board. We have an Eagle. We have Gibbs off the board. We have a Lion as well too. So the other main fantasy guys outside of Bijan are gone. And we do have Jeanty off the board with Brock Bowers not being available. So if we go McBride and then Jeanty, that actually could be really interesting. Because, again, the McBride production was right there with Bowers. And I do think that Bijan and Jeanty is pretty close. But Jeanty in year one next year, those fresh legs, I guess he's got, a ton of carries in college. Probably a lot more than Bijan. Because I don't know if Bijan got a ton, like, his first year, maybe year and a half. But maybe he did as well, too, and I'm just not remembering that properly. But, yeah, because I guess maybe freshman Bijan was pretty hyped up. So he was getting a lot of yards and carries and stuff for sure. But he's again, not a bad pick. With the 1,800 yards last year, that gets a Falcon on the board. James Cook. If we go Jaden Daniels, I guess, as our quarterback, we get a Washington on the board. And then yeah, we go Cook as the running back. We did say Chua Hubbard, potentially from the Panthers as well. Jacobs from the Packers is not a bad option as well. So here, let's do this. Let's go Bijan Robinson is the initial running back for our perfect lineup. So initially, this is what we got, chat. Perfect lineup 2025. Again, we can pick one guy per team. So we've got our offense, Josh Allen, Bijan's our running back, our receivers, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Brock Bowers, Creed Humphrey, Joe Tooney, Quentin Nelson, Jordan Mailata, and Tristan Wirfs on our offensive line. Our defensive line, Hutchinson, Dexter Lawrence, Myles Garrett, Jared Verse. Linebackers, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, and Fred Warner, just covering all four other guys by himself in the linebacker area. We got our secondary as Xavier McKinney, Kyle Hamilton, Pat Surtain, and Devon Witherspoon. And then we added a coach selection, which ended up being Jim Harbaugh, of course, the Chargers. So our left-off teams initially are, I guess in no particular order, but Panthers, Dolphins, we left the Jags, we left the Saints on the board, we left the Cardinals on the board. Let's see here if we can remember this. We did leave the Patriots on the board as well too. Did we leave? We ended up leaving the Titans on the board, though it was close for a couple of calls. The Steelers did get TJ Watt in as linebacker. That's right, the Commanders. The Commanders got left off the board, chat. So this is the other interesting part of the experiment, again, is which teams get left off and don't have the initial standout guy. And again, there can be overlap. It just can be the defensive line is really stacked. But it is still making sense as we look at it here. So wait a second. I'm forgetting who else we left off. We got the Giants with the Dexter Lawrence pick, but we didn't take a Jet. So the Jets got left off as well too. And should we just count and see if that gets us to 10? But here, we'll just take a quick scan and make sure we didn't miss another team. Did we get a Bronco? We got Surtain. We got Surtain in the lineup. The Bengals did get in. Bears, Panthers missed. Falcons did get in initially with Bijan, and the Cardinals didn't make it. So yeah, here, number check. This should be, I guess, 9 teams because we did add the coach spot. So we are going to be down a team left off. Okay, perfect, chat. 9 teams left off. Panthers, Dolphins, Jags, Saints, Cardinals, Patriots, Titans, Commanders, and Jets. So, funny enough, I do kind of like the Cardinals, Titans, and Commanders a little bit. The Jets, again, they have fun run games. They have an identity. The Panthers hopefully are a feisty team. But I would say that these teams would be identity-less teams. So I don't know. We go identity, like the Browns don't necessarily have an identity. The football team, the Raiders, I guess, don't, but they kind of do with the coach, and maybe the coach culture thing is a little bit there, starting to form. I don't know if the Giants have an identity, but at least they have a thing with the defensive line, and that's going to be tough to definitely face up against. So the Cowboys, maybe the one other team as well that don't really have an identity, but their offense may be like a high-powered situation this year. So maybe it kind of just becomes that as well too. But the Dolphins would be one that they could definitely, again, because McDaniels and what the talent of the offense could be, is definitely something that is there. The Cardinals maybe continue to develop one. Same with the Patriots. The Commanders, I guess their identity is Jaden Daniels at the end of the day. But what are the odds the number one pick is out of this collection of talent as well too? Because I was wondering what the Colts' chances would be. So, everybody's the couple of teams are starting to eye Arch Manning right about now, and I guess we're really gonna get a good look and see what happens Saturday at that game too. Which I think Saturday is one of those. It's just gonna kind of end up being a perfect day all the way around. Again, we got the wedding that day, so that's gonna be a great day to participate in that as well too, as as an audience member of that. But also, again, just the return of college football. And again, you always hear the stories of like, somebody planned their wedding on the big sports day and missed their game. Everybody watched it on their phone. I honestly think, one, I just kind of like the idea of sports being, hot take, I like sports just in the air for any type of event. So I feel like I'm watching enough sports that if I have to take a Saturday off to, commit to a wedding, then that's okay. And I know that also I'm a degenerate. I will definitely be catching up on what I missed. But also, it's, again, perfectly just the first week. So it's like the anticipation of the first week. I just like the vibes of that in the air. It's good. Like, you kind of don't have to watch the games, but they're good games. And also, I think the time as well, too, is, it's the Texas-Ohio State game. It's the morning game. So if we watch Arch Manning win over Ohio State, and then we get to go watch Sam get married, I mean, that could be a top 10 day of all time. Like, honestly, and just our own personal life, like just those two events, just like that could be just all time stuff happening right there. Arch Manning takes down the defending champion Ohio State's, and then I guess he can't like take away a ring, but hurting the team that got the ring, and then Sam gets the ring. Chad, it's just the double ring on. How many double ring days have we had in the Remington Pod history? Because you don't get what network's going to schedule 2 championship games on the same day? That's never going to happen. So, this is, all-time stuff about to happen this weekend for sure. But the perfect lineup, I guess, perfect lineup of games is this Saturday, chat. The perfect lineup of teams is right here. 2025 NFL perfect lineup. So, we did go through the offensive defense. I guess the other alternatives that we could potentially have here to look at it would be, like we mentioned, if we wanted to bring in a commander, we could bring in Bobby Wagner as a linebacker. But he really did feel like the only other interior linebacker option. Here, let's see if we can go like tackle leaders and see if I can remember a name that I'm forgetting. Obviously, there's going to be great talent, but kind of the legacy, this guy's been defined as the top guy at his spot. Again, Fred Warner, you only have, I guess, one top guy as well, too. But you have a couple of spots on that team to have for the all-pro spot. Bobby Wagner still up there. Levante David still playing really well for sure. So maybe we do go Spillane, chat. Hey, it's going to end up being a Patriot making the list. TJ Watt, 19 tackles for a loss. I mean, how do we just not have those guys as our linebackers, though? I think that kind of has to be the duo. As much as, I guess, Quincy Williams is kind of the other one, and he is a an aggressive downhill linebacker as well too. So maybe not in coverage. Do we go like interceptions, chat? Was there a linebacker that just had crazy interceptions? This is going to sort it with some of the defensive backs as well too. Who led in interception? Franklin. Oh, our guy Zaire Franklin with 2. Spillane with 2. Pratt from Cincinnati as well. He is kind of a sleeper, chat. Hey, yo, he probably is not going to get the nod from Cincinnati over Chase, but he would be a guy that we could definitely put on the watch list for sure if we were assembling this team at a draft board. It may, Spillane's definitely a sleeper, but again, he's not going to get over Watt and Parsons. So we're probably not going to bring in a linebacker in that situation. If we did go Linderbaum at center, because Ragnow was the second team All-Pro center last year, if I remember correctly. Or was it an Eagles guy? Here, we'll see for sure. Yeah, it was Ragnow. Ragnow and Humphrey. It seems like those guys have been kind of the top 2 over the last couple of years. But with Linderbaum in the mix, again, that's going to take Hamilton out. But we would go Witherspoon as defensive back. And then we could bring in, Sauce Gardner. We could bring in the Jets, I guess, as a potential cornerback option as well. But this team, I think we kind of... Did we nail it, chat? First time? Maybe the receiver would have been the other place to look. The Ram spot. I guess we're just obviously assuming that we're 100% right. Having Verse in this lineup. So maybe Puka Nacua is, of course, another option here, which would mean we would need to find another edge guy, which would potentially then move one of our linebacker rusher guys, which is obviously a new position going into 2025, 26. The linebacker rusher guy, we could move him into the actually defensive line front. So Micah Parsons now, or it would actually probably be TJ Watt, who Parsons I think maybe is a little bit more. He's had some inside linebacker, tenure with his career for sure. He's been a guy that, again, really found his stride as a pass rusher in the NFL as well too. But TJ Watt there. So we need one more guy on defense. And I guess this could be our flex spot as well too. So I really hate leaving Verse off the team. The legacy of keeping TJ Watt on this team as well too is probably the right thing to do for now. And again, I think Hutch was just a smidge better than Verse, though it was pretty close. Like Verse was, he was awesome last year. I guess we got a lot of Verse stock. And I don't know if we're just really, complaining about that draft as well too. It is what it is. But that would mean we don't have a Texan then representative, leaving Stroud available at quarterback as well. It would free up. I guess Verse just goes into. I guess no, because we have a Ram. With Puka. Hey, yo, shout out. I do, of course, as we said for the fantasy pod, though, love Puka Nakua's game. So that would not necessarily take a lot of convincing for us to keep him there. And him versus Nico is a tough debate. They're very, very similar guys. Puka, is he a little better blocking? Obviously, the downfield threats between Jefferson and Chase are going to be crazy. So he might complement those guys a little bit better and be able to complement the run game as well, too. I kind of like him in the receiving core a little bit more. But, yeah, we did say Commanders available as a team. I guess now the Texans. So it could be, I guess, another Texans edge guy as well, which gives us the same style of team, but not necessarily. And I don't know if it's necessarily better than the team that we had, because our edge rushers were better, and Nico Collins is basically the same as Puka Nacua at that point. So we go Travis Hunter as our flex defensive guy, and then sneaky use him on offense as well too as a fourth receiver. That could be, and he's actually playing cornerback snaps now, so we could go play cornerback snaps for our perfect lineup, and then receiver snaps for the Jags, and then that's how he plays both ways. I don't know, but maybe he starts playing baseball as well too. I don't know if he goes the full Deion Sanders route. You know, how many toes is Travis Hunter gonna have in 10 years? But the cornerback thing, hopefully, at least we get to see him out on the field. I know that again, it's like, what are the expectations of him playing two ways? But if he is at least a guy that is, again, fourth defensive back, kind of, I think that's where he's listed on the roster right now. So that doesn't, I think that means there's like definitely packages that he's going to be in. And then injuries, like he's definitely going to play cornerback this year. So I think we're definitely going to see the two-way thing, but I don't know if he makes perfect lineup quite yet. So yeah, if we have Parsons and Fred Warner as our linebackers, that's pretty dynamic. We can go the safety, corner, and then a flex maybe for the last defensive spot, because I do love defensive backs, and of course I do love safeties as well too. So I don't know if I don't want to necessarily take credit and say I was ahead of the curve. It was just, again, it was more me being biased, and then it just so happened that that's where defenses went. But I would have just had all defensive backs out there in the field. Like linebackers, who needs them? Defensive backs. Fred Warner, he's good because, he can play safety, not because he can, blitz. But it does seem like the pass rusher thing, of course, is taking a hold more so than the coverage thing. But it's a little bit of a balance of both. It's just like, how many pass rushers and safeties, I guess, can we have on the field at time. So I got to remember to keep track of what teams are going to be in and out of eligibility here as we switch some of this stuff up. And we can mess with the running back as well too, though again, it's going to be pretty difficult to talk you out of Bijan. He does give you that little bit of maybe passing game as well, but GNT could be crazy. Do we go two running backs? I guess we take away an offensive lineman, and we do really like our three receivers. So this, between Creed Humphrey, Quentin Nelson, Mailata, and Wirfs, they honestly may be able to block. Maybe not this defensive line, but who needs Tooney in this situation? I guess the Bears would be one. If we go Jalen Johnson as our other defensive back. Ooh, chat. I'm going to have to remember other defensive backs. Hopefully I'm not forgetting somebody. We did say McDuffie, of course, could bring him back as well too. Jalen Johnson, football writer, first team of America, first team all conference. Gonzalez, yeah, or DeJean as well. But I think again, Mailata was the best player in the league, so he's kind of a lock. Joseph, it's close between him and Hutchinson, but probably not quite. So it's basically going to be Stingley. I guess Marlon Humphrey was the other first team all-pro corner last year. Hey, yo, we're not giving him credit. That's the second time he's made it in his career. So we do have Kyle Hamilton already, but Humphrey is continuing to make his case as almost next guy in as well too. So I do like the Jalen Johnson pick for sure. The Pro Bowl means nothing, chat, but if he's got back-to-back Pro Bowls, then he's a lock at this point. 3 in a row. 2? The last 2 seasons? So yeah, second team 2 years ago, not able to get second team this year. But if he's second team again, that's not super surprising. And again, perfect lineup. It does help, I guess, for our case if they do make some sort of all-pro team or Pro Bowl as well. So the Pro Bowl is definitely a safe bet. Jalen Johnson in the Pro Bowl again. You can see the Bears being pretty good. Good enough to send, a Pro Bowler or two. Sewell is available if we do end up switching out Hutchinson. Like we said, we could go Mac. And I guess, no, the Rams are available. I was going to say McVay, but the Rams are still off the table because we did put Nakua into the lineup as well. So, I don't know. Gannon was, I guess, McBride. But then if we're not going to go GNT at running back, does it make sense to go McBride over Bowers in that spot? Because I do think that Bowers' yards after the catch is a little bit more dynamic. As close as the stats were, maybe, I don't know what the average distance and the targets were for Bowers last year if we dig into the advanced stats. Because again, just watching him at Georgia, he was pretty dynamic. And again, McBride is obviously a great receiver, can get the separation, has the hands to make the plays for sure. But I think that Bowers is the guy to have in this spot. So the flex is almost trickier. The name value was stacked. And again, we were going to get pressure on the quarterback. So maybe that really was the perfect lineup. I guess having McKinney in the perfect lineup is not the worst thing in the world. I don't know if it has to be all like the best-selling jerseys as well, too. Again, is Verse is a good-selling jersey, but he's also on the Rams, so that helps. I think there's a marketability there. LA, there's going to be some jersey sales that go around as well. There was some defensive line options on the Vikings. So if we go Nico Collins over Jefferson, I guess we're probably not going to bring in Dallas Turner over Verse or Van Ginkel over Verse as well. But at least, okay, we considered it for a second. So shout out to those guys for at least breaking the conversation. I guess Simmons, if we went interior, we would be kicking out Myles Garrett at this point. That's right, we do have Myles Garrett as the other interior guy, which again I'm all in on. I think it's strategic. We're a genius, chat. We have Myles Garrett on our defensive line, so call us schematic geniuses at this point. But we are going to get creative with what we can do. So we're basically, arguing between Tooney and, do we want Joe Tooney or Jalen Johnson at this point? I guess we do need to see what other guards we had real quick in the mix for the All-Pro team. If we go 2 years ago, Lindstrom from Atlanta, Patino from Cleveland, Kelsey, of course, shout out. I guess, Zach Martin? Do we just bring in Zach Martin as a guard? We would lose Micah Parsons at that point. But, do we say we don't know what team Micah Parsons is going to be on? Did Zach Martin retire, chat? Is he hurt? What's going on? Let's see if Zach Martin's on the roster. He's listed as active there on Pro Football Reference, but maybe they're not up to date yet. He might be gone. Or is he just not on the Cowboys? Let's see where Zach Martin is currently at, if anywhere. I don't know. Maybe he's just... I guess he maybe just retired. 10 games? Still on IR? We'll have to see. So, injuries, a little bit of a career at this point. Maybe once you have the career, chat, that's somehow a red flag. But also, job well done as well, too. You got to give him the credit. So, Sewell is not necessarily a guard. He is a guy that we could keep in tackle recommendation. Oh, that's right. We had, Miraz from Denver, but we also had Zeitler from Tennessee. So I do kind of want to get a Titan on this team for some reason. Just to help push the Colts toward the number 1 pick. I don't know, that's what the goal, chat. It is what it is. The Titans had it last year. So this is the time for another team to ascend. And it seems like their quarterback might be the guy. So then that would leave the Bears as a no roster team. I mean, the Bears probably are going to be better than the Titans this year, but that's not a lock. And the secondary for the Bears is better right now, for sure. But is it Kevin, chat? Shout out our guy Kevin. Hopefully I spell his last name right. Kevin Zeitler? I think we got it. For the Titans is going to be on other guard. I'm all in on that pick, chat. There we go. Creed Humphrey, Zeitler, Nelson, Mailata, and Wirfs. Now our offensive line is set. So we can take the Titans out of teams left off. And if we add the Bears to our defensive back list, then the Rams all of a sudden become team that is left off. So we could still go another linebacker with our flex. We're going back to the edge. Maybe Verse does end up being a flex, and then we just end up Parsons Verse. It just ends up being kind of the same lineup that we had. And then we just basically just switched out Tooney for Zeitler is the only move that we made. We got creative and created a new position for Jared Verse, but he's just still rushing the passer. Again, pause. But football-wise, you get what we're saying. Same result at the end of the day in terms of, I was going to say Verse getting a sack, but I still feel like we're in pause territory if I'm saying that. So we can still figure out how to scheme and get Chris Jones on this team. If there was a 4th center, chat, if there wasn't just such a drop-off, I guess, randomly at the center position. Ryan Kelly? Is he? No, look, he's not even still the Colts center anymore. Chat, we got to catch up on our own offensive line at times. It is what it is. But in terms of the left-off teams, again, some of these teams are just making strong left-off cases. It is what it is, chat. They may be set in stone as these type of teams. So I think we did end up creating the perfect lineup there. You know, a shout out to the Bears fans for getting left off the list. So I don't know if TJ Watt is, a little more linebacker. We'll keep, I guess Verse is a linebacker too, but Verse is, I think, a little bit more of an edge than TJ Watt. So let's commit, chat. Hey, yo. Oh, no, because that's where we got Puka. That was the move. It was Puka on the Rams. So we go back to Nico Collins, and then we just, then it really was just Tooney for Zion. So there it is, chat. I think Puka Nacua, as much as we would love to have him on this roster, we are limited by the rules of the game. We can only pick one guy for a team. And I think Puka might even still be the better Ram at this point. But we do get, we would still get even good defensive end spots. But I guess we're just committing to this version of the lineup. So it's the same version that we read before with just Kevin Zeitler in for Joe Tooney. And the Bears now a left-off team instead of the Tennessee Titans. It is what it is. But basically, that is the perfect lineup for the 2025-2026 NFL season. So look, we got a flight to catch in a couple hours, chat. Ayo, it is what it is. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back to put a bow on the rest of the pod. Before we go pack, or basically just shove everything into a couple of backpacks, I think that's what's going to end up happening. But we'll be right back. All right, chat, we are back, and we've got one thing to react to, I guess, just one before we slide out of here tonight. we just had to be outraged by something, I guess, that Bleacher Report posted over the past couple of days. And it just happened to be this Mount Rushmore team post that they did with NBA players from this century. So last 25 years, best 4 players for some of these NBA franchises from this century. And I think some of them, of course, there's going to be easy enough ones. It was fun to see Tatum on this list. Again, the Celtics is obviously such a stacked legacy that, again, 2020 to 2000 to 2025, the last 25 years, it would make sense that he is one of the guys that was the best player on a Celtics franchise that won the title. They only have 2 titles over the last couple of years, and they have, I guess, made the finals the same amount of times as that core as well, too, which, again, was Pierce and Garnett. So there really is no other Celtics that you would think of in terms of initially. I mean, you could think of all the role guys, and it's a stacked, of course, roster if we're building out all-time rosters. But I think this is pretty safe. Rondo over Jaylen Brown. But Jaylen Brown did get the finals MVP. So Rondo had some great playoff moments, but you're going to go Jaylen Brown. Pierce has the legacy of even the early 2000s Celtics as well, too. So you get a bit of a span of the Celtics franchise. Then, Garnett gets traded in. You get them moving back into the superstar powerhouse era a little, those couple of years with that team. And then, again, Rondo is the one guy that at least spans the Celtics history here that's left off because you do have 2 duos represented. Yeah, I think we got that right. But all 4 of these guys, of course, this is accurate. So the Celtics one does make sense, of course. The Lakers one is atrocious, chat. In the comments here, you can see it right away. Kobe, obviously, Shaq, obviously, again, a duo. And Kobe and, Pau. But Kobe was there for 15 years, and then for a lot of it, they weren't really great. So it would make sense that he was the main guy that is going to be represented just in terms of all of the years and the main guy that they've had, but also just being one of the best players in Lakers franchise history, if not the best as well too. Probably him and Magic in the conversation. Shaq is the most dominant, one of the most dominant just individual stretches that we've seen in NBA history, accomplishing that in this Lakers franchise. He has a 3-peat, so that makes sense. Pau winning a title with Kobe, but maybe being the better player in the finals than Kobe has to make sense. But Derek Fisher is crazy, chat. Again, shout out to Frank Lopresto in the comment over here. We got, shouting out LeBron winning the ring. I mean, it's the obvious one. Derek Fisher did have quite the Lakers tenure. He was there for several seasons, won a lot of titles, was definitely a major impact role guy. But again, LeBron won a finals MVP. So it's not like LeBron won a title as the 6th man on the Lakers, just being a legend guy hanging out as, a name. He was still the guy that was there that won the title. And Davis as well. You could make a case for Davis over Pau, honestly. And I think Pau, honestly, that's maybe where the bubble does become into effect, or more so the opponents. Pau versus Garnett. Davis versus Bam is a little bit of a different sort of battle. But, yeah, this is tough, chat. Shout out to Bleacher Report. Shout out to whoever made this post. Shout out to, I guess, mini shout out to Derek Fisher's, at least, basketball career. There's certain basketball highlights that we don't like and certain non-basketball highlights that we don't like. That's for sure. But, yeah, in terms of the best 4 players in the Lakers franchise over the last 25 years, it's definitely, and shout out, LeBron's probably on 3 Mount Rushmores. Again, in 2000, in the 21st century for these franchises. But also the Lakers just had a long stretch there where they didn't have any star powers replenishing these names. So bringing in LeBron was definitely that. And he should be one of the 4 guys represented. Again, the Lakers franchise, like the Celtics, you start going previous history, there's a lot of other names that are going to be brought up beforehand. But just in terms of this franchise specifically, but even still, his tenure with the Lakers has been long enough now that, again, guys only played 10 years back in the day. So him just being on the Lakers for 7 years, it's okay, well, him versus Worthy. I guess Worthy won 3 titles, but also did Worthy ever hit the peaks that LeBron hit? I guess Worthy didn't have the bad seasons, but also, again, LeBron's LeBron, so you're going to project the rest of LeBron's career onto it as well, too. But, yeah, he should definitely be in this Mount Rushmore. Not Derek Fisher. Hey, Derek Fisher can call in and defend himself. Maybe. I don't know. IT, we'll decide if we'll take calls from Derek Fisher or not. He might be one of the few guys that it is what it is. be it the off the court stuff, but also the on the court highlights as well too. Disastrous. So yeah, that's a brutal one, chat. We've got the Bulls next with Rose, Joakim Noah, Jimmy Butler, and Luol Deng. So essentially, this lets you know that this is the only good Bulls team they ever had over the stretch of the last 25 years. Of course, MJ being kicked off the team in 1998. Ayo, for the second time. I mean, I guess maybe Matas, and we do this list in 25 years. He's in the mix. I don't know if Vooch had the run. Levine put up some numbers. Ben Gordon, did Ben Gordon put up enough numbers? Like the Luol Deng spot, we could definitely, it's definitely a little bit of a wild card. Joakim Noah did win some defensive play. He did win a defensive player of the year. He was on maybe a couple of all-NBA teams, definitely one for sure. So his pedigree as a Bull player the last 25 years, maybe actually second to Jimmy Butler. Like Jimmy Butler was good on the Bulls, but again, really extended, of course, afterwards as well too. He never got, I think, quite the all-pro stuff, of course, the same way he did in his career afterwards. But was he a third-team all-pro in Chicago? He might have been. But Joakim was definitely third or second team in Chicago as well too. And then Derrick Rose was a league MVP, so obviously he has to be on it as well. Getting his jersey retired this year, shout out. It's a great thing to see. Get jersey retired by the hometown team. I mean, it's, say what you want about the Derrick Rose career, but that's some great stuff right there. Ultimately, at the end of the day, very high on the wish list, stuff that you're going to accomplish. So the Chicago one feels pretty accurate. The Warriors one is interesting because I guess you're going Iguodala over Durant. You basically go, Iguodala was there when the Warriors team ascended. I guess he wasn't really there afterwards too much, but and he did win a Finals MVP. So in my mind, I'm thinking Steph won that one. And Steph and Clay and Draymond, of course, had the run after. I guess was Iggy on that team that won in 2022? Hey, yo. He might have bounced around and then ended up back on that team. I forget exactly. But if he was on that team, then that does actually, I think, we should fact check that real quick. Was Andre Iguodala in the league or, hanging out in the Bay in 2022? I don't know why we went to college instead of pro for the stats check here. But if he did have a couple of rings outside of those Durant years, but again, Durant won Finals MVPs as well too. So the individual achievements would be pretty equal. Yeah, that would have been his last. Oh, he only played 8 games that year. Oh, 2020. Oh, they won the Finals in 22. So it would have been the 21-22 season, and he only played 8 games after that. So he returned, I think, for the end of the season and for the playoff run. Didn't really play in the playoffs for him, unfortunately, really only 8 minutes a game. So I don't know how we really include that one into the Iguodala minutes, but him as a presence on the team, I guess, does matter in terms of the Mount Rushmore status. So good to see, again, if there's a lineup that you actually want to have as your Mount Rushmore, it's this type of scenario. Spurs, obviously, same sort of thing. But, yeah, Iggy over Clay, I think, or over Durant, obviously Clay is going to make the team, is fair. And honestly, you could definitely do Rocco as the fourth one, R.I.P. Rocco, as an honorary member, because the big three is the transcendent trio from this era, and, they did enough winning on their own. They don't necessarily need the fourth guy as well. The big three from the Heat. So Jimmy Butler becomes a second star now with 2 Mount Rushmores. Again, maybe that says a little bit more about the Bulls and a little bit about the Heat as well, too. The Bulls can't get talent, but they did have Jimmy Butler, and the Heat can get talent, and they had Jimmy Butler. So, that's interesting. Wade, of course, the legacy guy from the century, and Heat's franchise as well, too. I mean, LeBron, the best, quote-unquote player to play in a Heat jersey, but Wade, the best Heat guy. Bam is tough. What's this? What's Valentino Duar say, chat? Bam over Bosch? Yeah. Bosch is borderline Hall of Famer. Made some All-Pro, so all NBAs. So you probably give him that nod. And some titles as well, too. Bam and Butler did definitely make the finals and was definitely, obviously, competitive in getting to the conference finals every year and being a great playoff team. But what that big three was able to accomplish was pretty special in those couple of years there of just the eyeballs, the notoriety, the winning, the highest level of basketball that they were able to get to was about as high-level basketball between a trio that we've ever seen. So they have to be included. And, yeah, you do have to include Jimmy Butler as well, too. Just based on that one finals game alone where he dropped 40-point triple-double and was going absolutely berserk. The Knicks one is interesting because, again, they have turned it around the last couple of years, and right now it's good vibes for Knicks fans. But remembering the 21st century is not a happy thought. So they did make the finals right at the turn of the century. You know, that team started playing the season in 1999, so I don't know how we include that one. But Melo as the best Knicks player, I guess, you know, now Brunson is probably had enough seasons in New York to be considered the best Knicks player of the 21st century, and a little bit more playoff success as well, too. But Melo, again, was right there. So, yeah, those two guys. Randall is interesting, and that would really speak to the fact that the Knicks haven't really had anybody since that team that made the finals, and Randall and Brunson were a part of that team that turned it around. So you have Houston, I guess, as a guy that kind of stuck around, but if you're including that finals team, then maybe you just have Spreewell on it and say screw it. But yeah, at this point, it might honestly be the lineup that they have right now. Like, Towns could be right up there with just, again, best seasons that Knicks players have had, and at this point, you're almost looking at individual seasons for a Mount Rushmore. So Melo had a lot of good seasons. Brunson had a lot of good seasons. I guess Randall did have a couple good seasons for the Knicks, and that's your Mount Rushmore for the 21st century. But, you know, I guess, are they going to win the title with this team? We'll have to see. Phoenix getting some love in the Mount Rushmore display here. I guess I don't know if this goes 20 deep or 10 deep or what. Pause. But Nash, couple of MVPs, a lock. Booker made the finals, a lock. So you're going Marion and Amari as the other two on the Mount Rushmore over, say, Chris Paul, which, again, that team did actually make the finals. So I kind of think you might have to go Chris Paul over Sean Marion. You know, Sean Marion and this team might be a little more iconic as a Sun, and Marion did bounce around, and he won the final with the Mavs as well, too. So, yeah, I kind of think Chris Paul would be another multi-Mount Rushmore guy, and I think Phoenix would be the other one. I think that finals team and his injuries, unfortunately, you know, a part of the Suns' playoff legacy as well, too, as much as they are, you know, just the Chris Paul playoff legacy. But it's got to be, I think, Booker and Chris Paul and Amari and Nash as your four for Phoenix. Oh, we got Lob City, Jamal Crawford making the 4 chat. Hey, yo, honestly, I stopped scrolling after the Derek Fisher and just saved it and said, this is all I need to see. This is crazy. But Jamal Crawford over J.J. Redick is tough beat for J.J. Redick, because I do think J.J. Redick was the guy that you actually wanted out there at the end of games in your lineup. DeAndre Jordan, because of the center position, at the time, it worked. And Lob City, I think he had to be out there. But there were times when you wanted to run small as well, too. Maybe you ran Crawford and Redick as your actual end-of-game lineup. But Lob City, again, was DeAndre and Blake. So that has to be in the lineup. Chris Paul, of course, as the commander of the team. And, I mean, you don't want me taking out the Michigan guy of the Mount Rushmore. But, I mean, if we're being realistic about the Clippers' career of it, I think you would have to go with J.J. Redick over Jamal Crawford. I guess the case would be, did Jamal Crawford have the years before Lob City? Where, again, that goes for a little bit of some Clippers history. And he did have a Knicks run before Lob City. But, yeah, he got there in 2012-13, so he's just a part of that lineup as well, too. Again, the image is them all together. But, yeah, I would go Redick as the fourth one there. For the Cavs for the century, we've got LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love, and Ilgauskas as the fourth. Shout out, Ilgauskas is perfect, Chad. Ilgauskas has to be a lock in here. Again, if we're just trying to not take 4 guys off of the same team for like 4 teams in a row, then Ilgauskas is a good guy to mix it up, but was also really good for them in that finals that they made. Was really competitive in those games and really good for him for a lot of years. Kevin Love is the interesting one because the name value is definitely there in the career that he had in Minnesota. I mean, he would be one of the 4 best guys in Cleveland this century. And he did win the finals. And I guess he played defense on Kevin Love. So really, or on Steph Curry. So he played defense on one good play for Cleveland. You know, it's one good Kevin Love play in LeBron, and that's the Cleveland, history for the 21st century, and somehow they have a title. But I don't know if he quite had the career to make the Mount Rushmore. Again, the Cleveland sort of team overall maybe would be the thing to look at, the early 2000s Cavs, and it would have just been those LeBron runs as well. So another guy with the Ilgauskas team, because, again, LeBron was there in 03. So there for most of that, a good majority of the century, of course, hot take. So Kevin Love representing the title team, it makes sense. But you honestly I think you could just go Mitchell at this point. He's had at least 4 seasons in Cleveland, which, again, is about as, I guess Kevin Love was there for a long time afterwards and definitely became a staple on the team. Let's see, 9 years in Cleveland is crazy. And honestly, the kind of beloved, post LeBron bench guy-ish contributor role that he had was almost as important for his career as the title team run, in just endearing him to the city and becoming a guy that fans just loved. Because, again, I don't know if he was necessarily a beloved guy when they were competing for titles at the time. But Mitchell, as an all-NBA guy, is definitely hitting a little bit higher levels of basketball than Kevin Love in terms of his Cleveland tenure. So this would be his 4th season this year. So I think because 25, 26, yeah, that's close, chat. I don't know. Mitchell's 3 seasons, 2 almost top 5 MVP votings versus Kevin Love, 9 years. He was 15 a game for him, 9 rebounds, a little lower than you'd like. No MVP votes, of course, but 2 All-Star appearances in Cleveland. So is Mitchell's 1 season worth 3 Kevin Love seasons, basically, in the conversation? I would definitely go more convinced on J.J. Redick over Jamal Crawford, but I would still consider Mitchell right now over Kevin Love. And, Mobley going forward is a guy to eye, maybe over Ilgauskas in that spot as well. But for the Blazers, shout out Brandon Roy for getting on the Blazers Mount Rushmore for this century. I think talent-wise, he's definitely on it. I think the Blazers have had some just injury luck in general. So, the Odin pick in 07 didn't necessarily work out. That's, a couple years into the 2000s at that point. They had a couple of international guys that were fun. Was Rudy Fernandez in the 2000s maybe? Is that a guy that played in the NBA? Sounds like maybe a Blazers guy. So if Brandon Roy can get on the Blazers Mount Rushmore, then Donovan Mitchell can't get on the Cavs Mount Rushmore. That seems a little hot takey to me. Aldridge and Dame or locks. And yeah, McCollum has to be a lock as well too. I guess you could go, you're not going to go Wes Matthews or Batum. Why is Batum in the, Mount Rushmore? Might become a freestyle lyric. But McCollum's numbers, the team, of course, only made the 1 conference finals, but it is still the best version of the team that they've had this century. They didn't make a finals earlier on or anything like that, or necessarily like compete in the playoffs in a major way. But I guess Rashid, maybe you go Rashid, one of the Jailblazer type guys. I guess whatever his timeline was for that team as well. That might have been 90s. But the Thunder, Durant, Westbrook, Shea, and Nick Collison. Hey, Nick Collison does have his jersey retired. You could go Jalen Williams, won a finals, put up, I think, 40 points in a finals game is a pretty strong case. James Harden was a 6th man. Granted, both him and Nick Collison were coming off the bench in OKC. Pause. But I think Harden's numbers were a little bit better. His impact a little bit more felt. But I would honestly consider going Jalen Williams. He's got the case for not quite enough seasons. But again, like Durant and Westbrook never actually won the finals. So Shea and J-Dub got the finals won. It was definitely a lot of those 2 guys offensively at the end of the playoffs. And J-Dub had a couple of great games as well, too. So did Westbrook. Obviously, Durant's great. But I think those 2 duos would make sense. In respect to Nick Collison, obviously, they're paying homage to the great career that he had as the impact guy there. But I guess that's the list that they have here on the post. We're not going to go to the article for the full list. We know the Spurs is going to be, the 3 guys and probably Kawhi because he won the finals MVP. If it is equal to this. But yes, Chad, we got to go pack. Hey, fortunately, everything's laid out. The backpacks are ready to go. It's just, assembling the parts correctly, make sure the computer is easily accessible for TSA. I don't know what all the rules are. Boarding pass is ready to go. We just hop on the plane. Once we start traveling, it's easy. So once we're packed, once we go to bed, I guess actually once we wake up, because once we wake up, then we know. Well, I guess once we're on the plane, really is once we're off the. What point are we safe, chat? Hey yo, but. Once we're on the plane, we're, in the airport, we're good to go. Because I guess the nice thing about, a nice kind of low-key Midwest city is, we're obviously, nice enough to have a decent airport, but still, you can still get to a decent airport. But once you're in the airport, it's not like crazy traffic going through it. So you give yourself enough time, but once you're on the way to the airport with enough time, then you're good to go. It's not like kind of major city. You're like, okay, we still got time, but maybe some, traffic delay. Who knows what's going to, who knows what kind of 5-10 minute thing's going to happen to just throw you off the track. And now all of a sudden you're behind, and then another 5 minutes and then you're behind, and pause. But you don't really, it's easier to stay on track in the smaller cities. That's for sure. But we'll try to keep the events and stuff should work out where we should try to still just maybe be able to go live as well, but while we're in the Bay. So, hey, what do we do when we go live, chat? We sit here, talk about sports, maybe watch a movie, listen to an album. Like, we might be able to just go Friday night, listen to the new music drops that happen like we always do, because if the Wi-Fi situation is good, then, why not, chat? Hey, yo, it is what it is. I guess, it's like, hey, you're vacation in the Bay, but we can just live stream a Friday night in the Bay, chat. It is what it is. Maybe a Sunday. Who knows? You just got to subscribe to the REMINGTOM pod. Stay locked in. See what happens. So we did it. Technical difficulties and all. We made it to the end. Shout out. Thank you guys for locking in. We got to dart quick because we got to, like I said, get ready for this trip. But I guess, we're like semi running around because we got to go, pack to go fly to just like, go sit in a chair to attend an event. Like, I don't, imagine having to plan the thing, chat. Hey, yo, I am out of our league. That is for sure. Just that type of responsibility. Hey, yo, it is what it is. So, obviously, still a couple of days out. You imagine there's, the running around is still not even at a max at this point. But, yeah, they're locked in, chat. They're probably cruising. Hey, yo, it is what it is. But, yeah, shout out. We got to go. We'll see y'all hopefully later this week, but stay subscribed. You never know. The YouTube is the place to be. You can catch the feeds up on the podcast feeds as well, too. So Spotify, Apple, all those platforms, they are there. But, yeah, stay tuned, chat. We might be back. We might not. We'll be fun. We'll be in the Bay if we'll see you next time.